Come on, Addicted. Aren't you familiar with that popular Cyndi Lauper hit, Metroidvanias are good enough?
Not these days. Everything's got to be Metrovania Plus. It's got to have Metrovania Plus pinball mechanics, or heck, I even tried that new game, Night Witch, published by Team 17. It's not enough to be a Metroidvania. You got to add Danmaku elements to it now.
Shmuproidvania.
But maybe in the early 80s, it was good enough. If it's good enough for Cyndi Lauper, why not?
Shoot the Core Cast.
Welcome to Shoot the Corecast, the official companion podcast to the RF Generation Shmup Club. This is a family-friendly shmup-themed podcast where things never change. They're always the same. Hopefully we never jump the shark. I'm Addicted, also known as Addicted to Shmups, and with me I have...
MetalFRO, also known as Game Boy Guru.
And we got a special guest, don't we?
We do indeed. Let us welcome Corkman to the podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm Corkman. I'm just a big fan of the podcast and a lover of Fire Shark. So,
you've good company here.
We appreciate that on both accounts.
This is where you plug stuff.
Yes.
Oh, I don't really have anything to plug much. You can find me at FireSharkMD on Twitter if you like.
Nice. Well, speaking of which, if you would like to connect with the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter at ShootCoreCast. You can follow me directly at GameBoyGuru. You can find all the feeds for the podcast on our Linktree page. That is linktr.ee/shootthecorecast. Join rfgeneration.com and check out the forums there. Join us for a Shmup Club playthrough. And also, please like, rate, subscribe, review, etc. the podcast on your preferred platform. You can join the RF Generation Discord channel. We have a dedicated Shoot the Corecast topic there. You can find that linked from the front page of rfgeneration.com. And then also you can follow me on Twitch to get notifications of new streams, since I do stream the Shmup Club selection of the month multiple times throughout each month. That is twitch.tv/GuruGameBoy.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's always fun to watch you with the parrot dogs and some work time fun streams. Especially for the month of December.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll get to that later.
And I have to also thank everyone from RF Generation, everyone who participates in the Shmup of the Month. I also have to thank everyone who does a good job of upkeeping the database. Without it, I don't think Mark MSX would know how many copies of Crimson Clover he's bought that he's got to give away. It must be, in the thousands at this point? At least a couple.
It might be, yeah.
So if you haven't already, please try out Crimson Clover and check out the database.
Indeed. Well, let's dive into our question of the month to kick things off. I threw this out on Twitter and on the Discord, and the question I asked is, what arcade game do you believe was made better when it came to home consoles? Our first response was from BB on the Discord, who said, Garega, because you can make the bullets visible.
Yes, that definitely helped me when I played that game for sure.
Yeah, big time for me. I just had a hard time with visibility in general, so that was a much needed upgrade.
Yeah, I definitely concur. Without the M2 enhancements, I felt like I was trying to play a shmup on one of those DMG Game Boys with the light on there and the magnifying glass. Where is it? Where is it? You know, so it definitely helped out.
Well, Garega's a far cry from Solar Striker.
Yeah, but at least for the most part, I can see the bullets in Solar Striker without needing to change all the options. It's a quality of life feature. Although, to be fair, though, Solar Striker only requires, 6 AA batteries? 4 for the Game Boy and 2 for the Light?
This is true.
Unless you go with an STD, and we don't ever recommend STDs on this podcast.
No, generally not.
Our next one comes to us from @Cannibal. Easy Mars Matrix on the Dreamcast. They had several features that extend gameplay. I haven't had a chance to try the arcade original Mars Matrix, so I played a heck of a lot on the Dreamcast version. Maybe we should slot that in for 2023.
So we could go play Mars Matrix.
Yes, we could.
Yeah, that's one I've only ever played on the Dreamcast, so it'd be great.
Yeah, definitely need to mess with that at some point.
That's on the Mister, if I remember correctly. That's the CPS2, right? It's alright.
I think CPS2, yeah.
We'll all just forget together.
Super Goat chimes in with Bionic Commando. The NES version has both better action gameplay and deeper gameplay. That is absolutely true. I've only messed around with the arcade a little bit. It's kind of interesting, but it's just not the NES game.
Right. Yeah, and this is one that I very much expected when I threw this question out there. There are 3 or 4 in the list that I knew I was going to hear multiple times. So, we'll have to see which game wins by the end. Louis G on the Discord said, Space Invaders. The 2600 one has better pacing and more modes, including some really great ones. And I'd never really thought about it, but that's an interesting perspective on that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, Space Invaders might have been the first game I ever played, and I remember it had, kid mode in it, and me and my brother used to love that, so...
Our next comment comes to us from @BlurSTG. Gradius 3. I don't know if the Super Nintendo version made it better, but definitely more enjoyable in my opinion. Stand out to the NES Life Force as well. Yeah, the slowdown is as real as it is on here. It's definitely helpful, and I think it made the game a lot more approachable. Anyone who's played the arcade version knows it shows no same. or to take a quote from Cobra Kai, no mercy.
Yeah.
Pony Tachigen says, I gotta go with Contra for this one. Contra on the NES captured the arcade feel perfectly while also being just an absolute blast. Yeah, definitely.
This was another one I expected to hear a lot. Steel Bull Runner said, Double Dragon 1 and 2, especially with the hit mechanics. And I was slightly surprised by this. Less so about Double Dragon 2, but it seems to be there are 2 schools of thought on the original Double Dragon. Some who love the arcade version and think the NES version is inferior by comparison. And then there's me, and maybe a handful of other people who actually prefer the NES version to the arcade version because it feels less clunky and, like Contra, more natural and more fluid.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. I have a lot of nostalgia for the first Double Dragon myself, so I can see that.
I had nostalgia for Double Dragon 1, then I played the Tiger LCD game, and I think that killed about any fun that I had out of that one. But if I had to choose, I've got a little bit more nostalgia for the arcade version just because I played it around the same time in the arcades, and I got used to the slowdown. Because even the arcade version has slowed it. It's meant to be janky. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know, could they put that on a Nintendo box at the time, now with less jank?
I don't know. I don't have nostalgia for the original because I never played the original in the arcade, and I literally only played Double Dragon 2 arcade once at a water park, and it had a broken joystick, so you couldn't go left. So that's the extent of my Double Dragon arcade experience.
Be glad you didn't play Double Dragon 3 in the arcade. Someone had the bright idea to give you health power-ups and stuff, but you got to go to the shop, and each time you want to do it, you had to put in a quarter. So if you want to buy something in the shop, you got to pay extra for it.
The original DLC.
Indeed, milk them for all they're worth. And we'll get into that in just a bit here, but that crept up with Same.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like a maybe someone should make an indie game, Revenge of the Arcade Operator. All right, our next comment comes to us from Shoot the Core. Bionic Commando was better on the NES, and well, I don't think you'll find a lot of people who like the arcade version. I completely agree. With the adaptation of, was it Albatross on the Famicom version? I forget the guy's actual name. I don't want to say the actual name on here, but the
right. I think Albatross was the organization.
Yeah, the big bad. I can't say they're family friendly. I've said too much already.
Hooks and Fangs has another vote for Gradius 3. And I haven't really tried the arcade game version of that. I just hear you guys talk about it.
Well, if you like pain, try it.
That's what I understand.
Old Man Burley says UN Squadron / Area 88 is a debatable one, though many prefer the console version.
Yeah, I think most people prefer the console version. I was the odd man out who preferred the arcade version because it was pretty straightforward. Something gets in your way, you kill it.
Yep.
And where there's a lot more to it to flush it out in the Super Nintendo or Super Family version. Alright, next comment comes to us from @Extreme88. Gonna go with UN Squadron here, though I think a better choice might be the 360 cave ports with their enhanced visuals and range modes. Yeah, I think a lot of people would choose Kai Katana for a Cave 360 port. I don't think that Mochi Mochi Pork or not Ibarra, Pink Sweets, that combo pack added much to it aside from making them available for a console. Was there anything else that they related? Futari, I could say you did some.
Yes, Futari would be a good candidate.
Yeah, I think I know Kai Katana is a good mention because I didn't have an extra mode that the arcade didn't have. I want to say it was like the climax mode or something like that.
Yep.
Ishmokin has another vote for Contra for the Famicom. More fun than the arcade Contra.
Yeah, the arcade Contra was something that I played at Putt-Putt, maybe a couple years after I played the NES version. I was so excited, Contra, this is going to be great. And I got to say, I was pretty disappointed. I was like, this sucks. Let me go back and play The Simpsons.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with Super Contra at some random tourist trap place when my family went on a vacation to Branson when I was, 13 or something like that. I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, the graphics are really good, but then watching the action on screen thinking this is sluggish and looks kind of clunky.
Yeah, clunky is a good word for it. You know, it just I think like there was a cool effect where like the trees kind of swayed in the wind in the first level or something like that. But other than that,
yeah, and they put that into the Famicom version because they had the extra
right.
chip. Yeah, I can't remember. I don't want to say MMC, but that's not right. I think Konami is VRC6 or something like that. I'm trying to pull from my addle brain here. But if we're talking about, I don't exactly have anything like Branson, Missouri, but I do remember in the early 90s, I went down to my dad for a work convention, and were staying at a Disneyland resort, and they gave us Disney bucks back when they still made those things, and I traded them all at the local arcade tokens, and used them to play games. Man, that was some of the best times. Had a chance to play, you mentioned Super Contra. That was where I first had a chance to play Super Contra. Played all the way through Final Fight, Turtles, 1989, all sorts of good times.
Nice.
Yep.
Need New Shorts says, Golden Axe. It's beautiful in the arcade and pretty pure, but I'm really not great on it. The Genesis version really shines as being more fun and playable, at least to me.
This is one of those that I expected to come up because the AI in the arcade release is absolutely, dumb. Absolutely dumb. And the Genesis version, I remember it goes on it's got a little bit more added to it. Plus they fixed the AI. So you couldn't call the Genesis version the definitive version, at least in the arcade. But in Golden Axe 2, that said that never got released.
Yeah.
Although that probably would have been like a Saturn port or something like that. But yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely right with Golden Axe 1 there. The Genesis version is so much better than the arcade original. At 99 Heal Potions, does Goonies count? Technically not the same game. I'm not counting Light Gun games because they just can't compare. Maybe Donkey Kong Classic also. Donkey Kong, I'd see that a lot of people might actually prefer the NES port because it was so much more accessible than what people played. I mean, I would think that was probably my first actual time of actually sitting down and trying Donkey Kong was on the NES. And Goonies was on the Play Choice 10, so I could see that. I mean, that's sort of a conversion, but I see what you mean. Goonies 2, the Goonie-vania? What would you call that?
That'll work.
It is so much of a departure and an interesting game compared to the first one.
Come on, Addicted. Aren't you familiar with that popular Cyndi Lauper hit, Metroidvanias are good enough?
Not these days. Everything's got to be Metroidvania Plus. It's got to have Metroidvania Plus pinball mechanics, or heck, I may even try that new game Night Witch, published by Team 17. It's not enough to be a Metroidvania. You got to add Danmaku elements to it now.
Shmuproidvania.
But maybe in the early 80s it was good enough. You know, if it's good enough for Cyndi Lauper, why not?
Exactly.
Martin Worley says, Hellfire, that cute little option helps a lot. You know what? I've never played like the arcade and the Genesis port like next to each other. I have to take notice of that next time.
Yeah, and I want to say the option is maybe only in the Genesis and Mega Drive versions. I don't think that's in Hellfire S on PC Engine CD.
No,
unless someone can correct me.
No, for that they forgo the option. They added in itchy or interesting cutscenes.
Oh, right.
Wow. All right. WLTR 3565 says, I'd say Fireshark / Same 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 on the Mega Drive. The toned down difficulty made the game much more pleasant. That's not saying much, considering the difficulty in the arcade was actually jacked up too much, though. And foreshadowing, this is kind of why I asked this question.
Yep, that's what I thought. I knew that's why you asked that question.
They loved it so much they had to reinvent it several times. Yeah, I'm sure we'll go into this, but it started out as more of a pushback from arcade operators that turned into a little bit more difficult game than it should have been. That genus stuff. I mean, it's still not as crazy as Life Force, I swear. Or heck, anything with the name like Wonder Boy in there. Talk about confusing naming conventions. And what was it? Salamander to Life Force to Salamander. I forget what the heck the weird naming convention was. At Shmup Junkie says, not a shmup, but I'll go with Ninja Gaiden. The arcade beat-up wasn't as bad as the NES original. It's pretty much my favorite platforming series of all time. Massive nostalgia for that one, so be my pick. Definitely, I was waiting for this response. Ninja Gaiden, anyone who's played the arcade version, and I think it's out on the links. I know that there was a Genesis prototype, but the only commercially released one I'm aware of is on the links. It's, there's nothing really that notable about it in my opinion, but the NES version, magnifique.
Yeah, I want to say the only real standout thing about the arcade game is the continue screen when you're...
Buzzsaw.
Where you've got Ryu Hayabusa strapped to a table and a saw blade coming down toward him as it counts down. And then, of course, as it gets down to 0, the screen fades to black, and you don't actually see him getting cut to ribbons. But I remember that very distinctly because there was a Ninja Gaiden arcade cabinet at a roller rink that I used to go to once in a while. RIP, it's gone now. But yeah, they had that there for years, and I played it a couple of times. It was fine, it kind of had that neat mechanic where you could grab an enemy and flip over them. That was new or different with, in terms of beat 'em ups and stuff. But yeah, the NES games were a masterclass by comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I was going to say for this question, but they were fantastic. I mean, they had two other sequels. There was 2 other sequels, and yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. My dad took me, or I was fortunate enough to go to NWC trials in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, and aside from playing Castlevania 3 beta, which was a game I particularly wanted to go there and play, I got a chance to play Ninja Gaiden 2 before it came out on Proto Kart, and right there it became one of my favorite games. I still have 2 copies of it ready to go at any time. Just need some extra punishment.
That's cool.
Nice. Cold the Ark says Turtles in Time home version added a couple levels and played better. Yes, that's true. I've kind of played that Cowabunga collection kind of recently and kind of noticed the same type of thing. The Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo is much more natural and for me, I guess.
I think they refined the combat a little bit.
That would make sense, yeah.
Datana Refkey says, Parodius Da on Saturn port, I think. Mainly 2 things. Difficulty balance is better on Saturn port, no slowdown compared to arcade. This is an interesting topic that we could do a whole episode about, I'm sure. But I know there are some folks who... It used to be a thing in the shmup community where people would decry slowdown in games, particularly in home ports. So you would have stuff like Gradius 3, where you had the Gradius 3 on the Super Nintendo, and people say, well, it would be better if it didn't have the slowdown. Or I distinctly remember people complaining about In the Hunt on Sega Saturn. Oh, there's too much slowdown. Honestly, I don't mind. And sometimes the slowdown is helpful. So if you like playing without slowdown, by all means, fire up the emulator and overclock and all of that stuff. But I'm an old man. I'm going to play with slowdown.
I'm wondering what it would require to overclock a Saturn now. I wonder if you would require a Segata Sanshiro expansion kit. Maybe it plugs into the MPEG card where that goes. I don't know. It sits on top of the cartridge slot like a 32X.
Magic mushroom indeed.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think will be neat to talk to Mark MSX about doing a podcast is slowdown. How accurate do you have to be for slowdown? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it somewhere in the middle?
Right.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yep.
Although I sort of picture him sitting around the desk like Andy Rooney. And what's up with slowdown? All right. Our next comment comes to us from @NeoSummoner. Cave ports on modern consoles with all the enhancements, if that counts. Yeah, if we're talking about the current Switch ports, it's nice to see that they put everything in there, not nickel and diming you. For example, Mushi Hime-sama had the extra mode on there. I know for DFK they put in the Black Label on there, and I can't remember if they had anything to Espeleta 2, if there was DLC for that or not.
Well, there are a lot of modes in Espeleta 2, and I want to say they're all included on the Switch release. The one thing I don't know on the DFK release is if it includes Ketsupachi.
Excuse you? No.
I needed to double check that.
Okay.
CD Sound System says Contra, Rigor, and Ninja Gaiden. Yeah, a lot of those Tecmo NES games had a pretty stark improvement over the arcade games. I think, especially Rygar is a good one too, because that became a whole different type of game.
Right. And this was generally a trend that we saw in the 8-bit era, that either you would get a straight conversion of the game and it would be kind of terrible, like Akari Warriors, or you would get a reimagining of the game, which happened with a lot of Capcom and Konami and Tecmo, like you said. And so that started to become a prevalent thing.
It's known as the Micronics effect.
Yes, have Micronics port your arcade game and watch it suck, and then realize for the next game, ooh, we should probably do something better.
Well, didn't they do they did 1942? I'm pretty sure they did Akari Warriors.
They did.
And I'm pretty sure anything that was remotely educational was handled by Rare. So that's what's there.
I think they also did Commando for Capcom.
That was one of the...
Oh, and Ghosts and Goblins, too,
yes.
I think.
Yes. And they might have even done...
you think of Gunsmoke? There's another one for you.
No. There's a... It's Ikari Warriors 2.
Oh,
Victory
Road.
I don't know if Micronics did that or not.
Because you know the NES is a great console for doing speech. You know,
Right.
more like speech impediment, but
Gerber, gerber.
yeah, dribble. And then Ghostbusters. Sorry, I apologize. We're not making fun of anybody or any thing on here. We're just making fun of the NES here, and it's poor imitations at speech. Although to be fair, I would much rather listen to Double Dribble than Speak and Spell.
Definitive Mr. M also chimed in and said Ninja Gaiden.
Zoido says, I played a couple of runs on Deathsmiles 2 today. I think it's a good choice. The 360 range comes with 16x9, more characters, more stages, more bosses, and a difficulty select for each stage. Deathsmiles 2 will be a great thing for Christmas. Unfortunately, we just played through Deathsmiles 1, so I don't want to do a back-to-back thing. But yeah, with Deathsmiles, it seems like every time they do a new release of that game, they add at least 6 more modes. And for the most part, they're really good. I really appreciate everything that they added to it. And I'll be happy to try it for Deathsmiles 2. Do either of you have experience with Deathsmiles 2?
Nope.
No, I really don't. I just recently got that collection of Deathsmiles 1 and 2, and with the idea of getting a version of Deathsmiles 2, and I just tried it out a little bit, but I'm looking forward to trying it some more. I know people don't like it, but I'm curious to see why. Crispy Crips. I'm sorry. I prefer the NES version of Contra to the arcade. Ninja Gaiden is another big one. And Gradius 2 for the PC Engine CD is an amazing port that added an extra stage. Ooh, I'm curious about that.
Gradius in general seems to be on where people, whatever version it came on, people added to it. Right, the PC Engine version, it was the same as the MSX or Nemesis that added that graveyard zone on there. You got Gradius 2 on the PC Engine that has extra stage. They really did it up with that. And was there any other Konami games that they sort of just add stuff on for the PC Engine? I don't think Parodius had it.
Well, the original Gradius PC Engine version took after the MSX version and added that
The Boneyard.
extra stage, the Boneyard, yeah.
Yeah, and let's see here. Fanny Zone was so special that they ported it twice and made you buy it. Or no, it was R-Type, I'm sorry. The original R-Type was so special that made you buy it twice, right? You had to buy levels 1 through 3 and levels 4 through 7. Was it 4 through 6? But either way, I think that was DLC, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because of the size of the Hue card, they could only fit the first 4 stages of R-Type on the Hue card, and so then they had to sell it as 2 different games. And then by the time it came west, they made a bigger Hue card and put it all in one.
Wasn't there also something weird with the MSX where you had to put in like Nemesis 3 and Nemesis 2 in order to reach the last level on Nemesis 2? I'm trying to remember how that went. But Konami was a favorite of doing mix and match so that you could use as like different cheat cartridges and stuff like that.
Right.
But I was pretty certain that Nemesis 3 you have to plug in Nemesis 2 in the second cartridge slot in order to play the last one. And there's all sorts of different unlockables that they loved doing at the time, and good for them. In fact, Gradius 2, I think that might be a 2023 choice.
Nice.
Have to keep that in mind. Risk Storage says Sagaya /Darius 2. The MD version is easier and has quicker reload on shots. Although, I gotta say, the Mega Drive version does not have a thing called a tuna sashimi, so that's a minor knock against it. but I'll allow it.
At Real Lord Dalek says Contra and Super C on the NES trounce their arcade counterparts. And I definitely with Contra. Super C, I sort of like the arcade version. Maybe I'm in the small or in the minority for that one, but and both Contra and Super C on the NES are great games.
Sentience IXP says Jackal. Yeah, I can see that. I didn't think the arcade one was too bad, or it was pretty fun. But yeah, the NES was kind of, it seemed more of a, I don't know, just more of a cohesive game. Maybe that's a word for it.
Well, the one that came stateside was the Famicom Disc version. That thing was so weird. You had to like smash TV and use a second controller in order to fire, if I remember correctly. Wasn't that the one where the second controller, in order to shoot, what directions you had? You used one D-pad to move it, one to shoot?
That was one of the game modes, yeah. But, yeah, the arcade game was very difficult. So, both the Famicom Disk System and NES versions are more approachable.
Oh, definitely, by far. I swear that would have been like a 75cc game if I didn't have a chance to play on the Mister.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Lilo says, Time Crisis. The PS1 version looked very close graphically, but included an entire additional campaign and one of the best light guns of all time.
Yeah, the Guncom 1. In fact, almost every single light gun game that made it from the arcades to a console seems to have been improved in some way. I saw a lot of people talk about Time Crisis 2 being a really good example as well, where they had extra modes and extra content. And I would even go as far to say the not the original port of Time Crisis 4, but the add-in, the one that has Dead Storm Pirates, the one that came on the PS3 and allows you to play with the Move controllers, or the Guncon 3 is much better than the arcades. And the Guncon 3s are sort of funny because you can like reload them by just twirling them around. Plus, they're natively supported by the Mister. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with those. So if you happen to see the Time Crisis 4 collection, I think is what it's called, PS3, it's kind of expensive. It used to be like $5, now it's $60. But if you happen to find a copy on there, snag it cheap, and you can use the Move controllers on it. So you don't have to set up the Power Glove-esque light bar on top of your TV. It's a lot of fun. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, that's what I'm on the lookout for.
Oh, and don't forget, if you have Time Crisis 2 and 3, there you can use the FireWire or the Firelink on the front of your PS2s to link up two consoles together to make it just like the arcade. I don't know who's going to be.
That's kind of cool.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know who's going to be lugging two CRTs around, but if you got the will on the way, definitely it's a fun way to play that game. All right. Tony Toon says Gradius 3. I love to see a Gradius 3.5 with the enhanced playability, also aka difficulty, of the Super Nintendo version combined with the content cut from the arcade. Contra, Super Contra are both objectively superior on the NES as well. Yeah, another vote for Contra. I thought Contra would be the one that was mentioned most, but maybe Gradius 3 is.
Well, we sort of got, I won't say Gradius 3.5, but maybe Gradius 3.25 with the PS2 launch title Gradius 3 and 4. They did sort of add it. They did sort of add the edit mode, or something like the edit mode that's in the Super Nintendo Gradius 3 game as an option. So it does improve it some.
Don Makuman Retro says Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast, port of Outrun 2 SP, not only has both versions courses, but also a ton of unlockable cars, songs, colors, etc., along with extra game modes for a lot of replay value. Also being one of the greatest racing games ever. Yeah, I can't compare it to the arcade game. I never played that, but I have the one I have it on PS2, and that's a lot of fun. It's definitely one of my favorite racing games ever, too.
Yeah, I'm terrible at racing games, but I've always enjoyed Outrun because I never feel the pressure of racing in the same way. And Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast is a fantastic package, and it's a bit of a shame that it's locked to the PSP and that, you know, it hasn't been and likely won't be re-released because of licensing issues with the cars.
Oh yeah, the hard copy of that has like a Ferrari logo on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Exactly.
Yep.
The rectilinear, yeah. So that might be, which is kind of fun because it makes me think I own like a Ferrari product, you know.
You know, I'm beginning to wonder. So, if Outrun doesn't make you feel under pressure, then does Daytona?
It does, yeah.
Oh,
But
I can even start saying do 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 do. No.
do, 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 do.
No, I want to
Yes.
sing Daytona in their heads.
That's all right. I'll spare people from my Daytona impression.
At the gaming hubby says, Chill Knob, Atomic Runner for the Mega Drive got a significant graphics boost and plays just as well. Yeah, Chill Knob is one that I saw mentioned a couple different times, and it's one that I've been meaning to try, but I really haven't. Do either of you have experience with this game?
I remember playing it ever so briefly in emulation for the Genesis, and then I remember there was a KOA campground that I was at randomly as a kid, and they had a Kelnov arcade machine, and I threw a quarter or two in, and I was a little confused by it. I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. And so this is one I definitely want to go back to at some point. I saw a copy at a retro store actually just yesterday, and unfortunately this one's kind of gone up in price. They wanted $80 for it. But I know Shmup Junkie is a huge fan of this one.
Yeah, I've played it, the Genesis port of it, and I don't know, it like hurts my brain a little bit because it's like auto-scrolling, but it's a platformer, but then it's kind of like a shooter. So I'm just, I don't know exactly what kind of game I'm playing, so it just hurts my head.
Yeah, it would probably take a little bit to kind of get the logistics down and figure out how to play. Another vote for Ninja Gaiden from Ed9.
And Kamadupe, an 85, says, Crazy Taxi, a new city, more modes, mini games. Same for Monkey Ball.
Yeah, Crazy Taxi was definitely one that I saw a couple times there, you know, with the more city, more everything. It's weird to think because it was pretty much a Naomi port. But Sega, I guess, learns its lesson from Space Harrier 2 that you can't just do arcade to console conversions and leave it at that. You got to add more to it. No one's going to say it's time to make some crazy money.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Kike76 said, SNES Turtles in Time, haven't played the ARC version a lot myself, so not too sure.
Yeah, I imagine we got a lot of stuff for Turtles in Time. It seems a pretty popular one.
Hornhead says the SNES version of Street Fighter II. Hear me out. It added same character play by way of a code. Character versus character didn't happen in the arcade until Champion Edition.
Street Fighter is something I expected someone to say the 3DO port. I keep hearing the 3DO port with its improvised soundtrack or improved soundtrack as being the main draws of the version of everything the other ones did and more. Because with Street Fighter 2, when you got around to that area, it was usually the CPS 1 versus CPS 2, right? Did you prefer the music of that? And I know that there was a Data Disc did a breakup, right? When there was a direct rip off the arcade hardware of the CPS 2 versus the CPS 1. And so they had to have two different collections. But I could see as being able to play mirror matches as a big draw for the original Street Fighter 2. That, and you're not, having to throw in, 4 quarters in order to be able to practice the moveset of your favorite fighter.
Yeah, and then also at the arcade, you don't have to put your quarter on the marquee to wait for your turn just to get smashed by some guy who knows all the moves and has kind of mastered, one of the characters. So
absolutely.
Thankfully, it wasn't Street Fighter 1. If you put yours on the marquee and someone smashed those buttons, your quarter would go flying off.
Yeah.
By the way, that was Brave Wave, not Data Disc.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brave Wave, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. I have that vinyl set, so I know.
Oh, you do? Okay. At Banana Bite says, staying on the shmups lane. Silkworm on Amiga, not a console, but still a home system. Slap Fight on the Mega Drive, and Xevious on the MSX again. Yeah, that was one of the things I was wondering if people were going to bring up. Is a lot of the Amiga ports were actually better than the arcade version. And the Amiga had pretty good graphical prowess, especially if you had the appropriate add-in cards to match everything. So I was surprised that this didn't come sooner. But I would definitely agree with Silkworm on the Amiga.
I'll agree with Slap Fight too on the Mega Drive. That's a really good port of that, or a good version. A lot of added music and maybe some new graphics and stuff, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, and then so Brandon Guerreros 97 says, I'll say Slap Fight. I really enjoyed Slap Fight Mega Drive and the special mode, the music with Yuzo Koshiro. It's one of my favorite arcade ports that holds up one of my proudest shmup achievements. Yeah, absolutely.
And closing things out is our buddy Duke Togo, aka @CollectorCast on Twitter, says Rygar, the arcade game was a decent action game, but the NES port really opened things up. So a lot more votes for Rygar than I would have expected, even though it's a more obvious choice. And actually more for Slap Fight than I was anticipating. I think it's pretty close in terms of Contra or Ninja Gaiden, really.
So what about your choices?
I was going to say a lot of these were already mentioned, but one extra one I'll throw in there is Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl on the arcade, you couldn't pick plays. It played very strangely. It didn't have like real characters or real players from the era. It's on the NES. It just plays. It's much more fun. You can pick your plays. It has little cutscenes. Great music. Yeah. Sorry to bring up a sports game, But that one's that I love that one. So
No, nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously, Fire Shark is the reason I asked the question, and it is a prime example. Another one that I would say, I guess I would call this maybe a selfish pick, but I'm going to say Altered Beast on the Sega Genesis. It might not be objectively superior to the arcade version, but I like the fact that it's more approachable and it doesn't beat me into complete submission like the arcade version does. I could actually beat the Genesis version, which I felt pretty good about. So that's one that I actually enjoy more.
Yeah, I think you owe us a wise from your grave.
Wise from your grave.
Thank you, Elmer. No. I have to say, if you enjoy the Genesis version, try the Famicom version. It adds in like 2 extra levels, and it's weird, and 2 transformations. I didn't say it's better than the arcade version. It's just weird. It's different, one that most people haven't played.
is it different than the Master System version?
Yes, it is. It's got different content than the Master System version. Didn't say it's better. It's just has different content.
Wow. The Master System version is special.
Well, is it like the Golden Axe where they use background tiles to animate most of the stuff?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
It's hot garbage.
I'm going to go with my picks. I'm going to go a little bit out of left field here. So I'm going to start with the ones I'm surprised people didn't bring up. I would have to say that all of the Tekken games were better when they came to the home consoles, especially Tekken Tag.
Oh, yeah. And Tekken 3?
Yep. And then the other part I would have to say is Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur was so much better. That was an Namco System 12 joint, which means it was on PlayStation hardware when it was in the arcades. And the Dreamcast version is just magnifique. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that game in 480p looks crisp.
But I'm going to have to go with the Black Sheep as my pick for this month. And that Black Sheep is Karnov. I think that the home port of Karnov, especially the Famicom version, which throws in story, which is, completely... that is the word I'm looking for here. Work time fun. It's full of work time fun. It's like God decides to punish Karnov, so he sends them to go do battle, destroy the great evil thing, and it usually have like a good ending and a bad ending in the Famicom version. And if you get the good ending, and God releases you and you live like a king, I forget, it's really weird, but it's definitely not as I don't know. It's Data East, so it's always interesting, but it's definitely one that you don't see most people play, or even compared to the arcade version. Definitely worth it. And you might even say Joe and Mac if you're talking about Data East games.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and most people don't even know that game had a what would you call it? Not really a reimagining that just came out.
Oh, sure.
Joe Mac HD. But the one thing I think that most people, and you could take this either way missed on here, is Punch-Out. I think the arcade Punch-Out to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, you'll find a lot of people who think that either Punch-Out or Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is a much better game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great choice.
No, I just thought about it, and I actually have 2 honorable mentions here. I would have to... 3, maybe 3. 3 honorable mention, it would be, since you mentioned sports game, I would have to say NFL Blitz. NFL Blitz became better when it came to the consoles. The other game that I would put on with that list, and this is debatable, is NBA Jam. NBA Jam is great in the arcades, but some would say maybe it's a lot better when it's played at home on the console, especially if you're doing like a multi-tap. And then the last one that people have mentioned, you could sort of throw in the Cruising series on here, but the one that's mentioned specifically was San Francisco Rush. Rush and Rush 2049 has extra modes and stuff.
Right, I never played any of those.
I don't think you're missing too much about the Cruising, but Rush is pretty fun. Of course, everybody's got tons of time around this holiday season here.
Right.
I think I have the new God of War game sitting in my PS4 for the past 2 weeks. I haven't even had a chance to turn it on.
Yeah. There's just so many things out there, and then once in a while you'll find a game that just kind of takes up a lot of time and stuff. I was not predicting to play like as much Splatoon 3 as I thought I would, but other people have been playing it, and my nephew's been playing it, and just kind of like, hey, you want to play? Okay, just was not really on my radar, and I don't know. I just kind of I really got into it too. So
I'm so thankful I was saved on that one. My son just grabbed my copy and he's just been hogging it. So I got saved on that one. I ended up starting Never Awake for a little bit. So I'll just play a little bit here and there. I ended up just playing all the way through of it. That and what was it? Not Dystopia, because that's stuck in my mind thanks to Strictly Limited. But what's the new NG Dev game again?
Oh, Gunvein?
Gunvein, yep. I wouldn't expect to enjoy Gunvein so much that game. If you like Danmaku, check out Gunvein. That game will seriously push your skills. It reminds me a lot of taking I don't know why it's not Diamond Dallas Page, DDP, and taking DDP and then putting in bombing mechanics, because you not only do you have to route on there. I guess it's got some Crimson Clover too, but the basic idea is you have to find the best path as you're shooting through and you're dodging bullet patterns, and you're switching between focus shot and irregular shot. And the quicker you kill enemies, the more B icons you get. And you get 10 B icons, you get a bomb. And when you hit off the bomb, it's similar to causing a break that you do in Crimson Clover, right? So you start getting stars, so you increase your score that way. But things are moving very, very fast, so you're always dodging. I mean, it's I think the only shmup that my thumbs hurt after playing like a level and a half. And it's got Bamba in it, which is always a plus. And it also has the lock-on of Raystorm. So even if there's a little bit of down between popcorn and dealing with your medium-sized enemies and your bosses, there's hidden icons. Sort of like the Raiden series, where there's that little icon that you get, where if you lock onto them and you destroy it, you can pick up extra bomb shards or bomb icons to pull everything up. It's got a really interesting dynamic that keeps the game moving at a frantic pace, and it's a lot of fun. I can't wait to see how people route this. If you like cave stuff, it's definitely worth a shot.
And that's going to be the year-long game next year, right? Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. That's on Steam, right?
It's on Steam, yep. And I imagine it'll come over to the... it has to come over to the Switch because the button inputs aren't matched to the Xbox, they're matched to the Switch.
Okay. It's like you figured out something there. But, yeah.
Well, with the Switch, it's always like A is on the very far right, where on the Xbox and most controllers, it's... I guess actually, if you're going with the PS4 controller, it's circle, which circle in Japanese is yes, because X is no. Microsoft and their no box That's what the Xbox means in Japan. No box. So, no, Gunman is a lot of fun. It just hurts my hands playing for the. I mean, the game is so frantic. Well, stuff. It's weird to think that I'm calling a game frantic that isn't. What's the one that we played with Cthulhu? Was it last year?
Starship.
Project Starship. Yeah.
Project Starship. I mean, they can get a little manic, but this thing's just got bullets and routing. You're constantly doing something.
Yeah, I look forward to it. That's what I like. That's what I like about the podcast. You guys are always like on the the verge of what's new and everything, and this is kind of how I get that information. Or I'll watch a Mark MSX video or something. Okay, here's a game. Between you guys and him and Studio Mudprints, I'm like, okay, there's a game I should be paying attention to. I guess maybe it'll get a physical release or so. If I hear everyone mention it, then yeah, okay, that's one I should pay attention to.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. We were trying to decide between that and Soulstar, and I think a lot of people would like Soulstar, but Soulstar has a bit of emphasis on scoring, but it doesn't have as much as you would get with Gummy. I mean, it's like trying to compare something with maybe an early cave game with something with the oh shoot, where the heck was I going with it? with DFK or something more or Crimson Cloak. I think that we need more than just good mechanics in order to make it a year-long endeavor. We've got to have some way that people can share scoring tips, and I think the best way to do that is to pick a game where a lot of people are interested in trying to learn more about routing and how to score. I think that had we done the same when Crimson Clover came out on the Switch, that could have been a year-long game. Yeah,
and I think with Mushi this year, there's just so many modes that it's just I've been just trying to discover each of the modes and which one I like the most and which one do I want to continue to play, and we'll get into that, I guess. But
well, yeah, that's.
I'm sorry. I just want to say within Mushi, I like it, but we can't keep doing cave all the time. We need to have something different.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that segues nicely into our focus shot discussion, since you mentioned Mushi.
Yeah, I've been playing Mushi throughout the year, just kind of off and on, and just it's like discovering all the different modes, and the original mode and the arrange mode and the 1.5 and the different ships, the different weapons, or the different weapons really, and different formations, and I just kind of recently just discovered Danmaku games. I haven't played them too much, other than like probably for the past 4 years. I kind of discovered them and just kind of played them casually and getting into them a little bit more. But one of the early Danmaku games I kind of got into was Mushi Futari, and on the 360, and I kind of feel like I think I'm preferring the 1.5 version.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel that just feels a lot more like Futari to me. It just feels more balanced. I think there's more slowdown. It seems a little bit more. It just seems a little nicer of a game, and I don't feel underpowered. I think in the original version, I feel a little underpowered when I played it, and of course I'm comparing it to Futari kind of the whole time when I'm playing it. So I've been playing 1.5, and recently I got up to level 5 without continuing, was kind of a lucky run, I'd say. I know you guys have mentioned this, but level 3 is a real bear. I found like level 4 to be easier than level 3. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I'll keep playing.
I don't know. Level 4 is plenty difficult with those stick bug things. They're not centipedes, but they're kind of like centipedes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to develop a strategy. If I'm really aggressive on those, really get in their face, then I can kind of clear them out a little bit quicker and easier, and they don't spread as many bullets everywhere.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, I probably need to learn to do that. I've been messing with 1.5, as I mentioned last episode, and I don't know. I've been discouraged lately. Part of it's my own fault because I'm not playing it every day like I should, and I'm not playing it as often as I should. So every time I take a break and then I go back, I play terrible, and I feel like my skills have plateaued and I'm not making any progress. But I know that if I just worked at it a little bit more and really put the time into it, I probably could progress. But yeah, it still feels like I'm spinning my wheels a little bit. After doing a shooting game podcast for 4 years, part of me in the back of my mind says, shouldn't I be better at these games by now? So, yeah, that's always the thing I'm struggling with.
I think it's also hard to go from this month we played Fire Shark. It's hard to go from like an old school game to like a Danmaku game. It takes a few runs and to kind of get your brain acclimated to a Danmaku game
Right. Yeah, and that's a factor that I don't always factor in. And so when I'm bouncing back and forth between our regular monthly game and our focus shot game, yeah, it can be hard to adapt and get into the right mindset for that.
I think that the way that you're describing your experience with Mushi is the same way I would describe my golf game. Every time I think I'm doing better, I end up doing worse, and I feel that my skills should be better. Yeah, that describes my golf game. No, I completely agree that Stage 4 is a bit... I compare it a lot to Stage 3 within the original R-Type, with you got the battleship. It can be a stopping point for a lot of runs. Even when you get to the very end, I mean, routing through most of the stage is pretty doable, but when you get to the end and you get to the end of the boss that has those 6 different points where it can attack you from, on each, 3 on each side, and then you got the middle, dealing with that part is pretty frustrating. And I think it's easier to route Stage 4 than it is to deal with that end part of that boss. Or the battleship bug. That being said, as I work my way through that, I go back to like Stage 1 or 2, and then I get hit by a stray bullet there, and go, what the heck happened? So, I guess I'm feeling the same things as you with my my shmupping score or my golf score there. I thought I was better than this.
It's also interesting, Corkman, that you brought up Futari, because both Addicted and I have made comparisons to Futari in just conversation about this game during the course of the year, because I played Futari first, and
yep.
So that was my reference point. And I think Futari is generally more well regarded than the original. And I can see why. I took to the original early in the year when I started playing it. But the more time I spend with it, the more I realize that it has some quirks that I wasn't expecting, and certainly some things that make me want to go and play Futari again so I can compare and really dig in a little bit to see, okay, which of these games do I actually like better? Because rather than trying to lean on the recency bias of having played a bunch of the original versus the bias of the one that I played first is the one that I like best, which I'm guilty of a lot of times. You know, I want to actually compare the two and say, which of these is actually objectively the better game?
Right. Yeah, I know Futari. I was kind of playing that during the pandemic, you know, and I had a lot more kind of time, and I was playing it like almost every day, just at least a couple of runs, and I kind of got hooked on it for a while, and I think this is just as good. Maybe not quite as good, but I'm having the same kind of fun that I am with that I did with Futari. So,
well, hats off for getting to stage 5 without having to continue. I certainly haven't managed to do that, even on a lucky run. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, thanks. My bombs are your friend. So.
This is true.
I definitely bombed things and to erase that pattern. But that's what I would need to do better, is just to be able to deal with those patterns I'm just bombing through right now. So,
right. Yeah, I'm too much of a bomb hoarder.
Yeah, there's going to be something where we can maybe do some shirts or something. Doctor Strange bomb. I don't know what would do. How I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb.
Dr. Shmup Love.
Shmup Love. Yeah, you get some weird things on that one there. What's the Shmup Love that you're into on here?
Cue the Barry White.
Oh, jeez. No, that's you getting confused with Deep Space Waifu. It's confused you.
Can't get enough Shmup Love, babe.
Watch out, someone will request that song for you.
Well, that'll be on the Steam Hearts episode, right?
Oh. Oh, man.
Here's another one for you that you could do a cover of. The one that Weird Al also did as well for I Love Rocky Road. You know, I Love Rock and Roll. Pat Benatar, the Scorpions. I love STGs. Put another quarter in the cabinet, baby.
Yeah, some Joan Jett.
There you go. Yeah, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Oh, Joan Jett, I'm sorry. I think it was Pat Benatar and the Scorpions.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I need more coffee. Insert coffee.
Although, I wouldn't mind hearing Pat Benatar fronting the Scorpions. That would be interesting.
I'd listen to that.
All right. Well, I think that is going to wrap up our focus shot segments for the year. And so be watching for a special Mushihime focus shot episode coming soon-ish. We hope to be coordinating that with a special guest. So that is forthcoming.
Yeah, and the special guest is Mark Wright from the Intergalactic Space Station. He's just going to tell us how great Truxton is.
Probably not. But now let's move into Shmup News.
Shmup news that you can use. All right.
That's right.
So
all the news that's fit to shmup.
Strictly Limited Games is releasing a Nintendo Switch physical double pack of shmups from the same developer. That being Destopia and Mecha Rit Steel Rondo from developer Hey and publisher Hanjai Games. And copies are still available for pre-order at this time of recording, but it's pretty hard. The black label version has sold out, and the white label is down to 20% left.
Yeah, so definitely get your order in soon if you plan on snagging that.
Yeah, I had a chance to play, not Destopia, I still didn't play that, but I had to play a chance of Mecha Rondo, and that game is not meant to wow in the graphics department, but when it comes to gameplay, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was one of those games that could be, like an undiscovered Toho fan game, and all of a sudden someone just shows up and is like, well, it's got pixelated girls riding girls on here on brooms or something or other. I don't care. This game's a lot of fun and the music rocks.
Yeah, I know nothing about these games, so I've been kind of on the fence on if I want to pick this up or not. But I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research on them.
In a nutshell, Mecha Ritz is traditional Danmaku with some interesting elements, and despite how crazy the game looks, it actually, from what I've seen, appears to be very approachable. And then Desitopia is a horizontal scroller that has a very unique weapon system where your ship can fire in 4 directions, and each direction is its own unique weapon. And you power those up over time, and rather than holding the button down to just fire away, you actually let up off the fire button so that you can charge it up for a more powerful blast, and do that kind of strategically. And there's a lot of interesting lore to that game, but it looks really interesting and unique.
Yes, it does, yeah. I'll have to think about that one.
So this is big news. There's a new shooting game in development for the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis that is in the works from Yuzo Koshiro.
Streets of STG.
He put this out on Twitter, and there were a couple of photos, and it looks like there were 2 photos from different areas in the same stage, but it looks promising, and certainly not like some kind of bootleg or low quality, independent work or whatever. It looks like a legitimate game that might have come out during the 16-bit era. So I'm pretty stoked about the possibilities.
No, I mean, anytime we can get another 16-bit STG, I'm all for it. It doesn't matter if the game ends up being. I prefer it not be, but it doesn't matter if the game ends up being crap, because you can. These type of stuff just aren't made anymore. I mean,
right.
The NES games, I don't know what's going on with that, but they seem to be a dime a dozen these days or NES inspired games. But something on the lines of the Genesis, you really don't see that many of them.
No, I mean, there's a couple in the works right now with ZPF and Arena Genesis Metal Fury, which I backed on Kickstarter. But yeah, it's it's not as widespread as NES type stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I love Mega Drive shoot 'em up, so keep them coming.
Absolutely.
Cave has pushed back the release of their licensed Toho shooter, which was supposed to release by the end of 2022, all the way to April 2023. Cave head IKD said that they wanted extra time to add content to ensure quality before the game's launch.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is when you think about Toho, and you generally think about the mainline Toho games, and I would say most of the fan STGs, they are vertical games. But this one is a horizontal game. And I know there was a horizontal Toho shooter that released on the Switch a few short years ago that was, I think, generally well received. But it's kind of interesting that Cave is going back to the well from a shooting game perspective, but rather than their bread and butter, which is vertical shooting games, they're doing a horizontal with Toho, which is not usually horizontal. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that idea. 8-bit styled indie Danmaku game A2 Zygon is out now on Steam. And that released, as of the time of this recording, just a few days ago. And I guess somebody really liked it because Mark MSX posted something on the Electric Underground Reddit that somebody had already gone in and unlocked all the trophies on Steam and, basically opened the game up all the way. So somebody likes it.
You make it sound like a Life Zero commercial. Mikey likes it. I think he likes it. No, any type of new SDG is good. I'm happy to see that more people are creating these games, more people are trying these games. I think we mentioned several times that if you go back and listen to some of the earlier Electric Underground, there are people talking about gateway shmups or gateway SDGs where, like, how do we get more people playing shmups? I think at this point we've had more people interested in the genre than we've ever had, and more and different takes on some of the stuff than they're in resurgence and more people trying stuff out here. It's really good. I'm hoping that maybe we can get enough interest to get a new Thunder Force game out there.
Oh man, speaking my language.
Take that.
Watch, it comes a EX Arcadia exclusive.
Oh.
Or it could be exclusive for what's that? The Evercade EXP.
All right. Well, now that Sega owns the property, who knows?
It'll just be molded in. It'll be a minigame that's in Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah. Or the next Persona game.
Persona 6 shmupping all night.
Well, maybe we'll get lucky, and when Yakuza 7 eventually comes out, Thunder Force AC will be one of the games you can play in the arcade in town.
Well, they were doing already. It's Yakuza Like a Dragon 2. I forget. Maybe they're just dropping the name. Maybe it's just like a Dragon 2. I was trying to remember, but if anyone has a chance to play the Like a Dragon game, definitely give it a shot. It plays a lot more like Earthbound than I thought it would, and I had to fun time with it. It's not, you don't need to play the other ones, the first like six and a quarter entries in order to understand it. You can start with Like a Dragon, and it's for a turn-based RPG, a lot of fun, a lot of wacky attacks and stuff on there, and well, it wouldn't be a Yakuza game without really wacky stuff.
True.
And speaking of really wacky stuff, Rolling Gunner and Overpowered will be coming to both PS4 and Steam. So I'm looking forward to playing this on Steam. You know, Steam is my platform of choice for games like that, and the Natsuki Chronicles. You know, any type that you give me a horizontally scrolling shooter with some sort of a little bit weird game mechanics, so definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah. This is one I really need to dive into someday. I have a copy of it, and I played it, and I was like, this is something kind of special. I love the idea of using like the right analog stick to control your shot. So.
Yeah, I sort of was playing, what is it, Pocky and Rocky Reshrine recently. I like the control scheme, but I was sort of thinking it might be fun to have an alternate option where that turns into a twin stick shooter.
Yeah, absolutely. That game was a lot of fun, but yeah, there's just a lot of times where you kind of, man, if you had those twin stick mechanics, then you'd be able to get yourself out of a lot of trouble, and it would just be a lot more fun of a game, I think.
Speaking of twin stick, come on, Arcade Archives, where's my Smash TV in Maximum Carnage? Where is it? Or is it Total Carnage? I'm sorry. I got the soundtrack on there wrong.
Yep.
Maybe I buy that for $1.
The final Toaplan shooter, Batsugun, will be getting an EXA re-release with new content, tentatively called Batsugun EXA label. Well, it's good to have new Batsugun, news. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to get our hands on this, but...
Yeah, my understanding of the way that EXA stuff works is that the EXA version, because they're contractually obligated to include new content, it means that the EXA version won't be eligible for any kind of porting for, I think, a certain length of time that it has to remain EXA exclusive. I don't think this precludes either Bitwave or M2 from doing the home ports that they were planning on doing. So I think we're probably still good there. We would still be able to get Batsugun and Batsugun Special, but whatever new stuff they add to the EXA version probably would not be able to come home anytime soon. And I know some of the early EXA Arcadia releases that came out as much as, 3-4 years ago, there's been no indication that those are coming home anytime soon. So, one of the games that we played earlier in the podcast, Veritra, there's Veritra Hexa, which adds new stuff, and I haven't heard anything about some kind of release for that. So my guess is it'll be a few years before we see any of that content making its way onto console or PC.
Yeah, I'll probably be on about the third time limited run releases that on a disc, right? I'm sort of wondering if that's the direction that we're going. We have Embracer Group now that owns limited run games working to bring a lot of these titles on. I mean, they're dealing. Well, that's Columbus Circle. I'm thinking about Glaylancer for a second, but they're bringing Gimmick and all this other stuff forward again. I wonder if by the time we get to like the PSX version, we get all these EX Arcade ES add-ons here, or it's just DLC for stuff like gimmicks in the same boat as Veritra, and we got Batsugun. But you would think that if they keep re-releasing these, even though they're limited, look at River City Girls. I mean, how many darn versions of that thing has come out, right? You got your PS4, your Switch, and your PS5, and we all know they'll be, as long as someone has a disc drive, or you can hook up some sort of disc drive to the PS6, there'll be a PS6 version of River City Girls. So I wonder how much it'll take before we actually get a release that includes it. Or maybe it's just DLC down the road.
Could be.
Yep. And now on to the most exciting news of the month. The 1994 arcade shooter Mazinger G. Sorry, G. The most exciting stuff, my tongue twister. The 1994 arcade shooter Mazinger Z will be getting an Arcade Archives release. It's exciting because it opens the door to other Banpresto licensed arcade shooters from that time period. Banpresto in time period was known for making sort of subpar arcade games, but they were always anime licensed, so they were always super, super popular. And in the mid-90s, the two that were the most popular were, of course, Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. They did it. That's not to say that all of them were crap, because they did some really cool Gundam games, and Mazinger Z worked on is a shmup that I don't think almost anyone has played, outside of emulation. So I'm really want to support projects like this, and hopefully we can get some more stuff in. I'm hoping that maybe we can get, this is from more Sega and that's Banpresto, but I'm hoping we can get get the Banpresto license. There were two of them. There was Dragon Ball Z Super Battle, I think it was, and Dragon Ball Z Super Battle 20, not 22, I'm sorry, that was the PlayStation. Super Battle 2, and then I know there was a F91 Gundam game. There's a Super S, but I'm hoping it opens the door in some of these titles. There's a lot of just interesting stuff that never really saw the light of day outside niche stuff. Like the System 32, which is the same thing that ran on the Spider-Man. It was sort of like Sega's last gasp for dealing with like super scaling, like this type of stuff that you saw with an Outrun. Imagine, like a dedicated data board to it. Really interesting stuff, but really, really flaky hardware. There was a Dragon Ball Z game for that I was lucky enough to import in about 2001. But it's like Punch-Out with Dragon Ball Z. It's behind the character's bag. Really, really different stuff and different play styles that you hadn't seen before. So I'm hoping this opens up the gate to get a lot more of these interesting ideas brought out and then given a console release.
Well, yeah, you were talking about some of that, and I'm thinking there's Mobile Suit Gundam EX Review, which is a robot or a Gundam fighting game. But thinking about Banpresto shoot 'em ups, we've also got Super Space Fortress Macross Plus, Ultra X Weapons.
Forget the original Macross and Macross 2. Macross Plus is where it's at.
Right. So this could open the door for some additional stuff. So I'm hoping that eventually materializes.
If Macross Plus comes out on Arcade Archives, you will see Studio Mudprints will make probably like an entire series of videos about it.
Let's see. The M2 STG team has a live stream on December 23rd, which is supposed to have updates on Alest Branch, Ubasana, and the Ray's Chronology series. So this is good, because Alest Branch, they've been pretty quiet about.
Yeah, the Rays is that went to pre-order quite a while, right? I mean, that's supposed to be coming out in like Q1 of next year.
Right. And my understanding is Ubusana was thought to be vaporware at one point.
That was the one that was supposed to be a pre-order, right? For Raise Ubusana?
No, that's no, that was the Argear.
Argear, sorry. Yep.
Yeah. No, Ubusana was another project from what's the guy? Hiroshi Iuchi, I think. But a bunch of people in the shmup community were thinking that it was probably dead, but apparently it's not. So, either way, this is good news.
Excellent. Yeah, December 23rd, Christmas comes early.
Yeah.
Well, we don't expect any news on any new Toaplan releases for this update, right?
Probably not. I mean, I want to say if they keep up if they started a cadence with the two Toaplan Arcade Garage releases, hopefully that means we'll be maybe looking for one in the spring. But I haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, they announce them and then they come out pretty soon after they announce them, don't they, usually?
Usually.
There's a free shmup releasing on Steam in December called Space Runaway, which is a side game in the forthcoming zombie game Wanted Dead releases.
Yeah, this is something that I saw in one of the shmup discords, and based on the short video that you can watch at the Steam page, you see these two characters in the game, and the one is standing in front of an arcade game for Space Runaway, and it's sort of a mech shmup thing. It looks like it's fun, but I guess this is going to be a limited release, so it's probably one of those things where you should go on Steam, add it to your wish list, and then when it drops, make sure to download it and get it installed, so that you can play it and then hopefully hold on to it.
Is this very similar to How to Shoot 'Em Up Girls? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Is it wrong to shoot 'em up girls in a dungeon?
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That actually got its own standalone release, whereas this seems like it's a teaser for this other game, and then maybe when you buy the other game, this will be unlockable or playable in the game as a minigame.
Well, free shmup. I'm not going to look a shmup horse in the mouth.
Yeah, let me fire up Steam right now.
Alright, indie dev Carmelo Electronics is releasing a new Game Boy Color game that will have a variety of gameplay styles, including platforming and shoot-'em-up stages. Demo is available now by purchasing a digital copy of the soundtrack. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at this. The Game Boy Color is something that I didn't see. Now, Game Boy, you saw SDGs, but Game Boy Color, there wasn't a lot of games that were specifically for that platform.
Right.
And I'm trying to think of, wasn't there like a Space Invaders or something that was specific to the Game Boy Color? Something like that I'm trying to think of.
There was for Game Boy that had Super Game Boy.
That's the Super Game Boy, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what happens when I'm running low on coffee and high in old age, so.
Yeah. I mean, the only shooter for Game Boy Color that I can think of that was designed for the hardware rather than adapted for the hardware is Project S11. because otherwise you've got stuff that was adapted for the hardware, such as R-Type DX, 1942, there's SWIV, and there's those Konami package releases that have colorized versions of some of their Game Boy stuff, which includes Nemesis and Gradius Interstellar Assault, or there's Space Marauder, which is the Game Boy colorized version of Burai Fighter Deluxe. So yeah, there's not a lot of full-on shmups or shmuppy content on the Game Boy Color. So it's kind of cool to see that it's happening. Even if it's a hybrid game where it's kind of platforming and shmupping.
Anybody want to talk about Winamp?
Prototype Atari arcade game Aka R is getting a second life by way of a new game that reimagines the original concept from developer Jeff Minter. For those unfamiliar, Aka R was kind of an interesting Atari arcade prototype, and according to the little video blurb that I saw on this re-release or this new game, there were only 3 of those cabinets that ended up making it out from the prototype stage. Our pal DJ Psycho M1 has seen one, and I think he even got a chance to play it. It's sort of an interesting, I guess you could call it a fixed screen arena shooter, insofar as you control a turret or something that's in the center of the screen, and you're firing in multiple directions to ward off enemies.
It sort of reminded me of like the gameplay. Remember Tron when you're trying to shoot the core in the last section of it? In order to walk through, you have to shoot the barrier. It's almost like a reverse way of playing that little mini game there.
Right. But being that it's going to be a Jeff Minter game, it's going to be a bit psychedelic
and full of llamas.
Very busy. There may be llamas involved.
You know, I'll take anything from Jeff Minter on there after his take on Tempest there.
Right.
You know, even if it's just like Tempest 6000 instead, I'll take it.
YouTube channel Horrible Tales has footage up of a Japanese doujin shooter called Dead in Vitro, which is currently in the alpha stage. It looks Toho inspired, but also appears to have some weapon inspiration from Ketsui.
Yeah, this was another one that I found on one of the shmup discords and kind of caught my eye. Graphically, I would not say it looks amazing, but of course it's in the alpha stage, so you never know how much things might improve. But the Ketsui inspiration was part of what grabbed my attention, because it has that sort of homing lock-on shot thing, and then the character was collecting these point icons that were these little 10 boxes with the number 10 in it. But it looks like when you do, I don't know, some kind of big cancel or something like that, you get just an absolute flood of point values on the screen. So it looks like a very score-focused game.
Big juicy cancels.
Something like that.
Drainus has been confirmed for its official Switch launch on February 2nd, 2023. Yeah, Drainus is, again, I've seen mentioned several times, I'm interested in. You can buy a physical right now on strictly limited games. It'll be good to get an eShop release so we have a chance to check that out. The what was the... Oh, shoot. I'm losing my mind, I swear. Not... Oh, speaking of stuff shipping and stuff here, I know it's not listed in our list, but I saw that Soul Cresta, the physical seems to be finally shipping out for that, too.
Oh, good.
That's right. I got a notice about that. Yep.
Yeah, I think that coincides with the Japanese physical version shipping.
Nice. So for those of you who didn't have a chance to pick up the one that says E for everyone, will now be able to pick up the 0-0 version.
Yep. Doujin shooter Cosmo Dreamer is getting a Japanese eShop release on Nintendo Switch, December 15th. No word on the sequel Like Dreamer yet, or a Western eShop release for either of those games. But I'm hoping, since we've seen, other Japanese titles come west, such as stuff from Terrarin Games and other developers, that this one will show up here as well.
The nice thing about the Japanese eShop is, worst case, you can always create a fake Japanese address and just buy it digitally that way. So it's not like it's completely barred. It's just not the easiest way to get to it.
Right. It's not as convenient.
And as we all know, the eShop is super convenient.
Right.
Mobile shooter Skies of Chaos is now available on Android and iOS, apparently through a Netflix Games partnership. I have no idea what a Netflix Games partnership, what that is.
Yeah, I don't either. I just saw this elsewhere and thought it merited inclusion. Been following the Skies of Chaos Twitter account for a while via the podcast account, just to sort of see development of the game as it's gone along. But, yeah.
Is Netflix trying to do something like with video games? Like,
I guess so.
Henry Cavill for Smash.
Say what?
Henry Cavill for Smash, toss a coin to your Witcher.
Oh, Henry Cavill.
Cavill's. I thought it was Cavill. Oh well. Henry Cavill for Smash. Either that, or I want the host of Nailed It for Smash.
Huh.
Alright. Retrobit is doing a Western physical release of Glaylancer for the Sega Genesis, and it's being distributed through LRG and SLG as well as their own site. I feel like we could probably throw in at least another acronym in there. Being distributed through LRG, SLG, and NGP. Now, it's good to see that Glaylancer is getting another release, but if at this point they do another release of Glaylancer, I think they've gone one Glaylancer too far. I mean, the City Connection was poorly handled, but it was... it seems funny to think of this as being, early days, but Glaylancer for the City Connection one was marred by them underproducing and overselling for a while, and this will be a good chance for a lot of people to get this game for a cheaper price, because it really is a good game. But since it's already out on the Switch and it's coming out with a retro bit, and so we really don't need like a PS5 copy of Glaylancer at this point.
Right. But this will be on Sega Genesis hardware, Sega Mega Drive. So it'll be a cartridge release. And
well, so was the City Connection one. The problem with the City Connection is they didn't use beveled edges on there. They didn't make it a quality release like they would on their later stuff. And this is again because City Connection at this time didn't have a lot of experience in this stuff. Their later releases are much better.
You're talking about Columbus Circle.
Oh shoot! Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like throw on and just say line from now on.
That's all right.
Yeah, Columbus.
No, it was Columbus Circle who did that release.
Yeah. Yeah, but at this point, I think anybody who has wanted to try out this game probably has. And I just don't see, after this, see a need for them to reprint it again for the Genesis.
Yeah.
Right.
I missed out on the previous release, so I'm kind of interested in this, and so I'm kind of glad they're doing it, because I knew it was there, and then it kind of went away, and you couldn't get it. And so, yeah, I'm happy about this. And maybe I'll replace my less than legitimate copy with this one.
Well, this one looks cool. It's a see-through red cartridge, and I don't know, I like the design. But pre-orders appear to be ending December 27th, so definitely get that in soon.
Yeah, and speaking of December 27th, on December 25th is when they're ending the Arcade Classics, right? The Konami release for the Switch and the PS4. And that one has, was it Thundercross? It has Life Force, and what else on that?
Yeah, Gradius, Vulcan Venture, or Gradius 2, Thundercross, probably Life Force or Salamander.
It had Haunted Castle.
Ajax.
Yeah, Ajax.
Yeah.
That's,
and a couple of others.
Something tells me this will be coming to Best Buy, though. They've done it for the other two. I wouldn't be too surprised if this came over to Best Buy.
That could be. Speaking of Sega Genesis, there's also a someone, I don't remember who it is that's trying to do it, but someone is trying to resurrect some Telenet properties. And so there's a crowdfunding campaign in Japan through some kind of Japan-only service trying to crowdfund a collection that they're calling the Telenet Shooting Collection. And the idea is to include 4 Telenet shoot-'em-ups. And so that would be Gyras and Granada for the Genesis, as well as Avenger and Psychic Storm for the PC Engine. Now, we've already covered Gyras. That's a good game. Granada is an interesting one. I mentioned either last episode or the episode before that I recently picked that one up physically. Avenger, from what I've seen, feels like it's a little average, but Psychic Storm is an interesting one. I've actually messed with that a fair bit through emulation, and that's kind of a neat little game. So I'm hoping that this happens and we'll be able to get this, because it'll be good for those games to be preserved anyway, but finally having a Western release of Psychic Storm will be cool.
Hey, if it comes with a mullet, I'm in.
Yeah, I love Granada on the Genesis. That's a lot of fun. That's a great game. And I wonder if didn't they do the Valis games? Or am I thinking? Yeah, okay, yeah. They did. So maybe those got here. So maybe this will get here too.
Right. Well, yeah, we got the Valis collections that they've done.
Right.
So yeah.
And then the reprinting by Retrobit of the Genesis games.
Oh yeah, they did.
Right.
That, yep.
So, yeah, it would be nice if this happened.
Yet another Pico shmup has been released, this time for a Japanese developer. It's called Dimension Soldier, and it looks heavily inspired by Star Soldier.
Yeah, except the video that I saw for the game kind of looked like Star Soldier, but leaning in a Danmaku Light kind of direction. Looks very hectic.
Great.
Star Soldier, was that the infamous Dahaki Mijin game? Or
yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. 16 shots per second. there's a Dojin horizontal shooter in development called Erdrunt Star. Early footage on Twitter shows it to be a game with early 16-bit look and a Sega CD/Turbo CD style soundtrack. Oh.
Yeah, this looks promising. And the music that plays during the short video I saw on Twitter really gives me the Sega CD vibes.
You still don't have a Sega CD? What are you waiting for, Nintendo to make one?
It reminded me of Soulface.
Oh, very nice.
Nice.
Now all they need to do is have Tony Hawk do the video editing on the commercial, and they're all set. Well, that was what's that? I think game they came out both on the PC Engine CD and the Sega CD, the one with the metal soundtrack.
Lords of Thunder.
Oh, Lords of Thunder.
Yeah, Lords of Thunder. The commercial or the video, the promo video for that Lords of Thunder on the TurboGrafx 16 was done by all the editing and stuff, and compiling was done by Tony Hawk.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that when I see this, Sega CD, Turbo CD soundtrack, that makes me instantly think of Lords of Thunder. It must be as good as that. No, So,
well, very little is as good as that, but if we're in the ballpark, I'll be pleased. Bitwave Games has announced that the initial batch of Toaplan arcade ports coming to Steam are being pushed back to early 2023 to make sure that they're accurate and that they have the quality of life features they want to include.
What's that old Miyamoto quote on there? A delayed game will eventually be good, but a rushed game will always be bad.
Something like that. I mean, this is one of those things where it makes me wonder if the games are being delayed so that they can be at least some level of parity with M2 releases. I don't think they'll hit that benchmark, but even if they're leaning in that direction, maybe that's what they're looking for. Because I want to say Masahiro Yuge was interested in the Steam versions having something akin to M2's Super Easy mode. And so, assuming that they can get the emulation right, then they'll have to figure out how to add that kind of content to the games. And I don't know, M2 knows how to do it. I'd be curious to see how much of that we actually get from Bitwave.
what's Bitwave's track record?
An excellent question, and I'm not really sure.
Well, let's hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, I know they're working on a few other things besides the Twin Cobra and other Toaplan games. But I don't think they've done a lot.
Well, they're doing Truxton, Twin Cobra, Gimmick, or Gimmick Special Edition. Here, let's see here. What other stuff are they doing? Zero Wing, Outzone, Wonderling DX, whatever that is, Picto Party. Oh, Cow Dash.
Japanese doujin shooter Gray's Counter is getting an update sequel called Gray's Counter GM, coming to Steam, the Microsoft Store, and all current consoles, slated for January 18th release on most platforms, January 29th for Switch.
Yeah, and I haven't messed with Gray's Counter, but it certainly looks cool. Definitely has a a chunky pixel look to it. Very sort of 8/16-bit early 90s arcade kind of look and feel, but with bullet grazing and some Danmaku elements. So that is your shmup news for December 2022.
A lot going on.
Alright, well let's go ahead and move into some game discussion here. And let's shout out our participants for the month. As always, of course, we had myself and Addicted, as well as our guest Corkman. We also had Fomacho, Louis G, Schlarp, Oops All Vibes, D Tungsten, Zoido, Geriatric Danmaku, Pony Trigon, and Mighty Squirrel. Pretty good crowd. Addicted, would you like to regale us with some information about the game?
In the year 1989, no. Alright, developed by Toaplan and published in Japan by Toaplan November 2nd, 1989, late 1989 in Europe, and in March 1990 in North America by Romstar, and in Korean from publisher Doyan. It's designed by Sane Nito and Yuko Tataka. Art by Shintara Nakioya, and music by Masashiro Yuge. It is the second in the Shark series of games. It is the sequel to Hishuzame, aka Flying Shark, or Sky Shark. The game sees the player piloting a special biplane to take on the enemy forces using futuristic weaponry. Yeah, some of it stolen from Truxton, but we won't tell them. Game Magazine, in their January 1st, 1990 issue, rated Same Same Same, or Shark Shark Shark, as the 5th most popular table arcade game at the time. The initial version had checkpoints after death, and the 2-player release removed checkpoints and limited horizontal scrolling of the play field. Later Fire Shark Western releases changed things up some more, adding more enemies, but decreasing the bullet speed and offering more power-ups to the players. Yeah, real quick into this, the initial release of Fire Shark, or Same Same Same, was brutally difficult, and bullet speeds at, well, as we would reach in Spaceballs, ludicrous speeds. And it had been called by some in the shmup community as sniper take factories that would just take aim at the player and shoot them down upon sight. It was a very, very, very hard game. In fact, I only know of one person who can no-miss the game. And if you take a look at the STG Weekly for Fire Shark, you'll see I'm watching the replay, and even very skilled players like Aquas can't no-miss the game in the initial version. So thankfully, when they brought it stateside, they made 2-player, and they got rid of a lot of having to completely memorize the enemy placements and how you're going to be dealing damage with this game. They also mentioned got rid of the checkpoints in the 2-player version of the game, and it's no longer where it scrolls a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right in order to see everything. I think the easiest way of explaining having to scroll to the left and scroll a little bit to the right is anyone who's ever played a vertically scrolling STG on the Sega Saturn, where it sort of cuts off. Greg is famous for that, where you can move up and down because it doesn't have the full screen size. I know that Strikers 1945 allowed you to do that. It's just very peculiar. I mean, it was necessary at the time. But these days, thankfully, we have displays that can be easily tauteed. It doesn't require 6 people to lift a CRT on its end anymore.
Right, and I think the elimination of the horizontal scrolling made sense for a 2-player, because then you don't have one player constantly trying to move the screen over one direction or another.
Yep.
Yeah, and that scrolling to the left or right, a lot of times that gets you in trouble. A lot of times you find a turret, it just shoots you down.
Yep.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. Don't go peeking behind the curtain. Pay no attention.
Exactly.
And I think so. Fire Shark or Same really is in some ways an answer to the first game of Flying Shark, because you. Wait, did I say? Yeah, Flying Shark, because in Flying Shark, they found it difficult for the player when they're starting out. So Fire Shark immediately gives you a power-up in the form of a spread shot, which, in my opinion, is the best weapon in the game for its coverage and its ability to deal a large amount of damage by point blanking enemies. And the other thing that came out of it was the difficulty was maybe a little too finely tuned balanced in Flying Shark. A lot of the arcade operators were not happy at how much playtime people were getting for their money, so they wanted a way to make things quicker. And so there was pushback from the arcade operators that made the first version of Same or Fire Shark a little bit too much one-sided towards the arcade operators. This thing will steal your lunch money and then steal your down payment on your mortgage and still ask for more.
Exactly.
So Toaplan developed the Sega Mega Drive port internally, which was initially released in North America in 1990 by DreamWorks. No, not that company who made Kung Fu Panda. It was a U.S. division of Toy Soldiers Incorporated. And then Japan in November 2nd by Toaplan themselves. Sega handled the European release in December 1991. A Sharp X68000 version was planned and in development to be published by Kennico, but never materialized. The Sega Genesis Mega Drive version was official license and reprinted in 2021 by Retrobit, both as a standalone release and as part of the Toaplan Shooters Collection box set, featuring reprints of Truxton, Hellfire, as well as the first North American physical release of Zeroing. And sort of funny enough, I think that Sky Shark is still available on Retrobit's website. I think if you go to their website, it's like the one thing that you can still order out of that whole collection.
Huh.
The game was also featured in Hoshido Same Collection from M2 STG, original Japanese arcade release, the 2-player Japanese variant, the Western 2-player release, and the Mega Drive and Genesis console releases as DLC, which were free with the physical version. Yeah, it's like $30 if you want just the arcade versions, and then $70 if you want the arcade versions plus the console releases.
Yeah, and the thing I found interesting about this is I've got the PS4 release, and that came with the download card that enabled me to get the Genesis and Mega Drive versions, but I had to download them and use that DLC code, and so I had to create a Japanese PSN account in order to accomplish that. I've been told that the console ports are actually just on the game card on the Switch version, so I'm not sure why that's different.
I can confirm that. I have the Switch version of this, and everything's on. No downloading anything.
Huh. I wonder why they did it that way.
Somebody messed up and they decided just to run with it. Here you go. Here's a card. It's like, what did we do? We reprinted so many of these. Yeah, just throwing a download card.
Yeah, it just seems odd that for a storage medium like the Blu-ray disc, that you would have more than enough space to work with. Why wouldn't they just put those on there? I don't know. It's weird.
Maybe they were too busy trying to insert hidden copies of the first South Park episode. Do you remember that at all? There are people who got fired at EA back in like 99, 2000 because they hid the first South Park episode into Tiger Woods.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Respect my authority, indeed. All right. Sami was also included in the Sega Astro City Mini V arcade console released in 2022. I haven't had a chance to play that. Is that the original release, or is that a two-player? Or
I think it's just the original release because the Mini V only has, the one built-in stick.
I wonder, but can't you connect something up via USB? Could you imagine trying to?
You can.
Yeah, something like trying to dual ship it in Ikaruga, right? You're just trying to play both players at once in semi.
That would be pretty bananas.
All right. Since we have Ed of Studio Mupp Prints, who likes to do just crazy stuff, that should be his next stunt for Shmup Slam.
And he's got to play on that little screen too.
Right.
Those bullets that are coming in really hot. Be able to dodge those on a tiny screen.
Wow. With all the input delay.
That's okay. I'll loan him a Game Boy Light with some double A's.
All right. Well, the gameplay is pretty straightforward. It's a 2-button game. You got 1 button to fire your main weapon, 1 button to bomb. There are 3 weapon types, which are the blue weapon. That's your default, and it's a 3-way spread shot. And when you get to level 2, it becomes a 5-way spread. At level 3, it's a 9-way spread. And then at level 4, it becomes this huge spread that covers about a 30-degree area. And it's pretty effective.
Yeah, there's a couple problems with this, though, right? Yes, it's a weapon, especially in the arcade release, that you want to keep with and keep running with. And if you point blank it can take out mid-sized enemies pretty quickly and do a lot of damage. But you can only have a certain amount of bullets on the screen. And the spacing of this can lead into problems where if you're firing all the time or just holding the button down, enemies will go through the space on there, especially if it's not fully powered up, and you will die because you think you're hitting something and it's not there.
Right. And that's obviously considerations you have to make with the game when you're routing it.
Yeah, but I will say that I think we touched on this a little bit. Is that the default blue weapon, the 3-way spread? It's got big gaps in the middle, but it's pretty effective at like picking off like turrets or tanks that kind of come in the sides, and then be able to have some firepower down the middle. So it's kind of nice that they did that. And if you ever need to like recover. It's not the worst weapon you've ever had in an STG to try to recover from using it.
Right. Oh, it's not like a lot of other early games where you just have forward fire and that's it.
Oh, it's certainly an improvement, but it is. My point is, it's not perfect. I know you got to be careful with it. Right? It's certainly the only weapon in the game, at least in the arcade version, that allows you to handle almost any type of given situation. The other two weapons, while nice and useful in certain situations, just don't. The power-up situation in the game is a little bit sporadic, right? You don't really know for certain, unless you memorize the game, when you're going to get your next power-up. So you can't just sort of gauge like you do in Raiden. Like, hey, I've got the purple toothpaste laser. I want to switch over to the red Vulcan shot. You just don't have that flexibility. So for the most part, you're going to be playing with the blue default to give yourself enough coverage.
Right.
That's what I find myself doing most of the time, is just using the blue weapon, just powering that up and dodging all the other weapons.
Yep. Well, speaking of the other weapons, we have the red, which is the flamethrower. That starts out as a single column of flame on level 1. Level 2 gives you a second column of flame that shoots from the front of the plane. Level 3, it adds 2 side flames that sort of sweep back and forth. And then when you get to level 4, you get 2 more side flames, and it covers a larger area and specifically helps to kind of take out threats that are sort of behind you.
This is a Truxton weapon, right? This is a weapon that was made as an homage to the blue laser in Truxton. But the biggest problem with this thing is if you have auto fire turned on, it just turns on to this little bitty spurt, right? And they fix this for the M2 port. So if you have auto fire on, you can properly charge it and then release its full power.
Right, yeah, the M2 port and really the home console release is that they have essentially an option that if you have auto fire turned on, when you get the red weapon, it temporarily turns off auto fire so that you can hold the button down and shoot it the way that it was intended.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know definitely the Mega Drive port does that. And the thing sometimes I think this can be kind of effective if you haven't memorized, like in the later levels where the enemies come behind you, and you can kind of position yourself kind of maybe a third of the way up on the screen. You can kind of take out those planes that come behind you, using the red weapon. If you don't know that they're coming at this particular point, you haven't routed it, perfectly, that you can kind of take them out. So there's some merit, especially you have to be at full power though. I think at the maybe level 3 it goes behind you some as well. That can be kind of effective, but yeah, just use it at level 3 or level 4.
Yeah, level 3, it starts to become useful. Level 4 is when it shines.
Yeah. It you know what? One of the first times I played this, I played this game and got like the level 3 fire weapon, and I felt you just felt like you felt invincible, in a way. You weren't. You'll get sniped, but yeah.
Yeah, you definitely do, and it really scratches that power fantasy itch in terms of playing a shooter with what appear to be overpowered weapons.
Yeah, you definitely get that real sense of like, wow, I can just sit here, at least on the Genesis version. I can just kind of sit here, a third of the way up in the screen in the middle and just hold fire, and nothing's going to get me.
Yep.
Until you get to like level 7 or 8.
Yep. And then we have the green weapon, which is a strong forward-firing shot that widens after each power-up level. Now on the console version, they widen even more, but this is sort of a green laser weapon. The power-ups and pickups that you can get, of course, you've got the P icons that will help you power up your biplane. You need 3 of the P icons to move up 1 level. So it'll take 9 of the power-up icons to get to max level. And one cool feature of the game is that once you're at max level, you can stock 3 additional power-ups and fill up the bar at the top. And that way, when you die, those power-up items that you have in stock will be cashed in, and so you'll immediately move from level 1 to level 2 fire.
Right, and that's really nice for trying to recover in this game. It gives you an incentive to keep picking up those P icons as you move along. And the other thing is nice too is that if you get kind of checkpointed, you get a tough checkpoint. Later in the game, you probably have a nice stockpile of lives, and so if you die twice, then usually you'll get to a point where you can get at least 1 power up for each life, and then you can get that level 2 spread weapon, and you're kind of it helps on the road to recovery there.
For sure. One thing I noticed when I was watching the SCG Weekly playthrough is once the player was at max, they didn't collect any more power-ups. So I wonder if, at least in the arcade original, that may be a rank thing, where they didn't collect any more of the P icons, potentially because it would involve the rank somehow. I'm not 100% sure.
That's interesting.
And one other thing to note is when you're collecting the P icons to power up your ship, the first 2 will always be blue, and then the third one will be red, signaling that once you pick it up, you'll be ready to move up to the next level. The S icon will speed up your plane, of course, and max speed is level 3. Bomb icons will add 1 bomber to your stock. In the arcade version, you can carry a maximum of 10, and I thought I read somewhere that 7 was the max in the console version, but it seems like maybe you continue to stack them for a little bit, because when I was playing the console version, it seemed like you could stack them higher than that.
Yeah, I believe so. I want to say that I've had a stockpile of 8 or 9 or something at one point.
Yeah, because you actually see that at the end of the stage if you manage to get there without dying.
Yeah, I think you only see that you have like 5 of them, but you actually have a lot more than that.
Right. You have the color pickups, which of course match your weapon types, and which one spawns will depend on what weapon you have already. So it'll vary depending on which weapon you currently have equipped. There are situations where you can spawn a 1-up, and even one situation, I think in stage 5, that you could spawn a 2-up. And then of course the lightning bolts, which are strictly for points.
Yeah, and there's like a whole table of what color pickup you're going to get, or if you're going to get the 1-up or 2-up. And one thing about the M2 port is that one of the most useful little gadgets the M2 port has is that ability to see what the next power-up is, so you can just kind of let that blimp go by, rather than sit there and try to dodge the weapon for 10 seconds or so.
Right. Yeah, the typical sequence in the original is, I think, power, speed, power, then green, then red, then power, and it kind of goes from there. I don't know what the sequence is beyond that.
There's these submarines in stages 9 or 10, right? And those always seem to give 1-ups, right?
Or bombs.
Bombs. I'm sorry, bombs, not 1-ups.
Right.
Yep.
Bombs, yeah.
Somebody set me up the bomb.
Yeah, and then there are those goofy, I don't know, plane hybrid things in a couple of stages that will always give off the weapon change power-ups. And if you get there with the blue, you'll get flooded with green power-ups. And if you can manage it, the best way to deal with that is to collect them so that then you can make sure that the next of those ships will spawn another color. Hopefully spawn a red, and then hopefully then another blue. So if you want to stay with the spread shot, you can go back to that.
Yeah, you can. Usually I was like, I think stage 3, like, they get like 3 or 4 of those green ones just kind of floating around. Just pick up one, and then get 3 or 4 of the red ones floating around. Pick those all up, and then you'll get back to the blue weapon eventually.
Yep. That's the way to do it. Now, most power-ups you'll make available by shooting down large blimps. But of course, we talked about other enemies. There's the ships we just talked about. There are some boats that you can shoot down that will put out a power-up icon of some kind. And then for the lightning bolts, usually those are either red shaded enemies or red boxes on the ground. The game plays over 10 stages and then loops. And it does have a rank system of sorts, where longer periods of staying alive and collecting power-ups will rank up enemies and bullet speeds. And then after you die, things will slow down a little bit and give you a chance to recover more easily. And then you get your first extend at 70,000 points, and then at every 200,000 points after that. So it's a little odd getting an extend at 70k, and then again at 270k, and then again at 470k, and so on.
Yep, if you miss the first level and not use all of your bombs, then you'll probably get an extra life.
Right. Yep. Hopefully you'll have enough bonus to get you there. So is there anything else basic that we need to add to the gameplay? Any other elements I'm forgetting?
No, I don't. I'm sure stuff will come up, but no, I think we.
Alright. Well, what about the graphics? How do we feel about those?
Birdie. No, the graphics are overall very well done. For a game that came out in 1989, I think it shows that they had a good mastery over everything is distinguishable. I mean, even when you're hit by sniper tanks and the bullets fly through you may stop and go, what the heck was that? But it wasn't because you couldn't see it with the graphics, it's just because the bullets were going so fast. I like the graphics. I think they're very colorful. I mean, it's maybe some people might say it's a minor improvement over Sky Shark, but I really like, especially the arcade colors. The console ports are a little bit darker by comparison, but they overall are pretty well done. I mean, it does have a little of that pillar box effect that you see with, and I don't believe we covered this just yet, so I'll backtrack just a little bit. But Raiden Trod, with the Genesis port where the aspect ratio is nice, but everything else just seems really messed up. It seems that everything was well done and really good. The animation, and you've got the guys doing their little dances and movements that are on the little animation of the guys as you land. The flamethrower effect is definitely a Truxton-inspired event and looks really good. You can see how a lot of the elements of this game would go on to inspire Raiden. And I think that we'll talk about this as we go in the sound part. Raiden uses the same OPL1 sound chip for its sounds that Fire Shark does. Fire Shark or Summon he uses. I mean, it's amazing to think how much we gush over gallantry in the soundtrack within Raiden, but it all started here with Fire Shark.
Yeah, and the sound. I mean, all of the tracks in the game are excellent, I think. And one of the reasons why I always come back to this game is just the music in the game is fantastic. And you touched on the animations. I love each stage has like something kind of going on when you kind of finish the stage or where you're starting up the stage. Like in the first stage, all the little troops, they form an arrow. The second stage is where which is probably the best one, where the plane is trying to you have you're thinking, oh man, maybe I'm gonna have a second plane that's gonna come with me, and then he just kind of crashes right into the building in front of it, kind of like that old black and white scenes that you've seen of planes crashing into the side of barns and stuff. It's great. The stage 3 has a little, you can see in the water there, little sharks swimming around. There's lots of little fun touches in there in this game.
And what STG doesn't come with its own theme song, right? Go, go, Fire Shark, go, go. I know there's a little bit more to that.
I think that, having played more of the, since we got the M2 port, playing more of the arcade version, those graphics look much more impressive than the Mega Drive ports. So yeah, the Mega Drives are a little kind of dulled colors and stuff. So I've been really appreciating the arcade version of that.
Yeah, I definitely think the graphics on the arcade version have the edge. But I do think the Genesis version, despite its limitations, is a fairly good approximation.
Yes, I agree with that, yeah.
I'm with you on the sound, though. The soundtrack is one of the things that has kept me coming back to this game a lot over the years. And I don't know what it is about Masahiro Yuge's tracks, but the guy just knows how to write a catchy track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of the Toaplan games have great music. Well, maybe not Target or Heli. No, that was pretty fun too. Now I think about it. Was there one track in that game, but it was still good. Yeah. It's this really solid. Yeah, it kind of, this and Twin Cobra, and Truxton and Tatsujin, and they all kind of have. They all seem to have a, just this great sounding soundtrack. They sound kind of similar. I'll throw Zero Wing in there too. That's a great soundtrack as well. Yeah, they're all kind of from the same era, and they all kind of have these just soundtracks that sound kind of similar, but are all kind of unique and amazing in their own way.
Agreed.
Yeah, and definitely some bangers in there. Or as DJ Psycho would say, hot jams. Alright, so let's talk about scoring, something that I know nothing about here. Who wants to take over scoring your side?
Well, you have the scoring in the game. Basically, you have your shooting down enemies. It's giving you points. And as we talked about before, there's like these lightning bolts that you can discover by shooting certain, usually in red boxes. As you collect those and you don't die, at the end of the stage, it will multiply your bombs by the number of lightning icons you've picked up. And I think, all of those the point value of those lightning bolts, that changes for each stage. I think it continually gets higher and higher, I believe, if I remember correctly. And also, the other thing is you have the power-up icons. If you have the blue weapon and another blue weapon spawns, that'll give you 5,000 points. And that's pretty much. Am I forgetting anything about the general scoring?
The game does have tick points, so I mean, if you're shooting enemies that require more than one or two hits,
right,
you're getting tick points for making contact with those enemies, but ultimately you don't have a lot of flexibility there.
Yep. And I guess you get 1 million points for completing a loop of the game. So that's a pretty big bonus at the end for completing a loop. And so the scoring is pretty simple. The thing you want to do to get a good score in this game is try to shoot everything you can, and don't use bombs. Is kind of the general advice there. If you don't use those bombs, you can't. You'll have a higher multiplier at the end of each stage.
Yep.
You can, if you get high enough with enough bombs, you can get 2 extends or 2 lives after each stage clear.
Yes.
Yeah, once you get past the first few stages, you can. There aren't enough bombs or lightning bolts in the early stages to accomplish that. But yeah, I think once you get past stage 4 or 5, there's a possibility of that. Alright. Well, now that we've had some discussion about the game, let's hear from the community. So, first up, we had Fomacho, who says, "I'm in. I've done a full loop of the PS4 release and got the trophies already. The original arcade version is quite brutal. I can't even say it's difficult, they just made it to kill you, and often. I got one hot run where I got to stage 3 and made 240,000 points, and I feel that's going to be tough for me to top. I've started trying the US arcade version, which has more generous item drops and less power drain, but runs can still fall apart quickly. The Genesis Easy mode is quite a cakewalk until stage 7, so I've been practicing those last few stages, but deaths are almost as hard to recover from as in the arcade releases. And then later on, Fomacho posted, I was so wrong about the manipulation of item drops. Really, there's nothing there. It's not even really a table, just a sequential list. Starts with power, speed, power, greed, and so on, and restarts when you die. If you don't destroy a blimp, the list still moves on. If your power or speed is maxed out, you'll get a blue or green weapon drop instead. And other versions have different item drop orders. And then he included a picture that said, here's the gadget telling me my power item will be replaced by a weapon item. And then also see the 1-up chance below. First comes into play in stage 3. The Odakebi is a beefy plane to take down, and there are 4 or 5 of them in a sequence. Yeah, there's some kind of trick where with that sequence of planes in stage 3 that hand out all those power change icons, if you position yourself appropriately on screen and take out that plane fast enough, it can spawn a 1-up instead of just a weapon change type.
Yeah, I don't really have exactly an idea of how that happens, but I've had that kind of happen randomly every once in a while.
Yeah, my understanding is that the M2 port has some guidance in it with the gadgets and things to sort of help you to discover where those spots are on the screen. So for someone who really wants to optimize it, that's probably one way to try and figure that out. Fomacho also said, I went through the exercise of getting the Platinum Trophy for the PS4 Fireshark release, which is to say I save stated through the arcade version, and boy are my thumbs tired. In the super easy mode on arcade, there's a huge end-of-game bonus for every life remaining. Yes, there is.
That's right. That's another good point, yep.
And then, after posting a high score on the Genesis version, I took my first hit in stage 8, lost about 6 or 9 lives that stage. You really only get one good shot at the boss every 3 lives when you get the full power up. Dropped a couple lives in 9 and 10, but nothing terrible. Finished the last boss with 2,891,460. Bonuses brought it to just under 4 million, and we'll cover that in a minute. And made it to stage 13 boss with 4,223,080 points. Yeah, that's something that we didn't really touch on with the super easy mode, but that's kind of a staple of all the M2 STG releases. And the super easy mode in this game is actually pretty fun. The bullet speeds are still insane, but you have an auto bomb, and the game dishes out a lot of additional bombs that you wouldn't normally get, but they're plentiful in super easy mode. And so it actually makes it kind of a fun run, and there's a lot of potential for scoring in that mode. And so if you get good enough where you can no-miss some levels and really get those that bonus racked up based on the number of bombs, multiplying out the other lightning bolt bonus, then you can really go crazy with the score.
The super easy mode is pretty fun. It's not easy. I mean, it's easy because of the auto bomb, and then they hand out the bombs like candy. But it's kind of fun in that it could be like a good training mode, to like deal with to figure out your routing and deal with the bullet speed. And what also is kind of fun is that one of the gadgets on the M2 port is your rank. It's like an old school speedometer style on the dial on the kind of the upper left of the screen, and you can watch. If you have like 9 bombs and then you get hit and hit and hit, you can just watch your rank just crash. So you'll start out kind of low rank, and then as you acquire all these bombs, it jacks up the rank pretty high, and then as you get hit and you start losing your bomb, you'll see that rank drop. And also after you use a bomb, it drops very shortly, and then it picks back up again. The rank is going crazy in that mode. As you pick up bombs and you get hit and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but I do think the rank maxes out at some point in Super Easy, though.
It does, yeah. You can only go. I think there's a meter. It goes from like, I think it only goes above. I don't think I ever got it above 60 out of 100 or something like that.
Well, yeah, that would make sense.
But 60 is still really fast. Really fast bullet speeds.
Yeah.
Alright. Our next comment comes to us from Zoidal. This was a really good reason to finally remove the shrink wrap out of my Hiso Same collection. I played some runs on the Mega Drive version and made it over to Stage 8 on Easy Mode. My best on Normal was Stage 3 until now. I guess I can do better. I remember I made it to Stage 7 or 8 on Normal a few years ago, but I'm not sure if I can grind this out for another month. I almost forgot how brutal this game could be, even on Easy. Once you're powered up, it's got a nice flow, but as soon as you're hit, oh boy. I also tried a few runs on the arcade version, and had some serious trouble to even beat the default high score. Green power-ups are my worst enemy. I came close with my run on Sunday on the Mega Drive US Easy version, but something hit me in Stage 9. I don't know if it's a sniper bullet from off the plane coming from the bottom of the screen or what, but I spent almost all of my lives learning the falling checkpoint side in Stage 10 massively underpowered and was wrecked immediately. Also played a run on Normal that day. I guess the arcade version is too frustrating for me to keep me motivated. I definitely prefer the Mega Drive version of the game. To me, the game is a lot of fun as long as I'm in the flow and got my weapons upgraded, but a wrong power-up at a wrong time, sniper bullets or crashing planes that run into you can kill the mood very quickly. The soundtrack is absolutely iconic, and the main reason I keep coming back to the game. Maybe someday I can bring out the patience and clear the first loop on Easy, which should be doable for me. Yeah, I definitely keep trying at it. It's not an easy game by any stretch of imagination, and yeah, those green power-ups are definitely pretty troublesome on there. I found I had a harder time avoiding those than the enemies when playing the Genesis version. So, keep at it here, but if you're finding that it's turning you a little bit more towards Gradius 3 Arcade, it's okay to drop it and try something with that doesn't require as much thinking, like Super Adventure Wagon.
Okay, Louis G says, okay, Super Easy is too easy. The auto bomb is overpowered. Later post, the arcade version is impossibly brutal. This must be the hardest shmup when I was using when I was using Google Translate on custom mode. Yeah, that's because the M2 port is only... The custom options are only written in Japanese. Lots of cool options. The North American one is pretty reasonable because it doesn't do checkpoints. But it also doesn't have the cool plane crashing thing. That's true. Good point. The gadgets show what power-ups are coming, but it's hard to glance at while you're sweating bullets. Absolutely.
Very true. Pony Trigon jumped in and said, "First thought, the fully upgraded fire weapon sound." Fully upgraded fire weapon in general. Absolutely beautiful. Bit glitchy in the Genesis version for obvious reasons, but it still does what it do. Annihilate everything. Also, I love how this is called an Uber weapon. And then later on in the Discord, Pony Testerton said, "Stage 3 is some serious 1943 vibes." Also, I did not expect to get this far. Stage 4, Genesis on easy. Wow. All that Varth paid off. Is it just me, or does this boss in Stage 2 look like the Toaplan logo? Especially after it goes boom. Looks like a mirrored Toaplan logo. We had some discussion of that. So, Stage 3 is 1943 as heck. Stage 4 is Raiden as heck. I swear, green power-up is a death sentence. Died to a boss trying to avoid this dang thing. I think my favorite thing about Fire Shark is all the little details you'd miss if you were playing on normal or higher. I noticed a little soldier dude in Stage 6 stuck in the sand. Also, your plane catching fire when you get hit. Interesting death there. I can definitely see where Raiden gets its influence, because Stage 6 feels so Raiden it hurts. A lot. As in, I either dodge precisely, or I get shut down a lot. And then again later, managed to get to Stage 3 in one life, and somehow managed to not die in Stage 4. Right now, I'm trying not to panic bomb. I tend to panic bomb a lot in this game, especially with certain bosses. And then final thoughts at the end of the month. Fun, but brutal. Definitely see where Raiden took inspiration.
Our next comment comes to us from Schlarp. Every time Stage 3 starts, I have to laugh. In the beginning of Stage 3, when your plane lifts, there's another little one that crashes against the wall. I completed the US, Japanese, and EU Mega Drive Genesis versions and set the region accordingly in the Mister, and I believe they're all the same. But the EU version is not adjusted for 50 Hz, it's just running slower. Oh, I hate it when they do that. The planes coming from the bottom left of this left and right in Stage 4 are really ugly. When I'm positioned in those situations, it's imminent death for me. I like games where memorization is necessary, but enemies coming in fast and behind without warning feel unfair to me. Arcade game design, I still love it nonetheless. Well, thank you for joining in, and I realize it can be this game can be quite frustrating, but it's still pretty impressive if you chance to play the US, Japanese, and European Mega Drive or Genesis versions.
Yep.
Let's see. Next comment comes from Orc Commander. Derusted a little bit over the last few days. First death on the last section of Stage 4 thanks to a system notification. Blech. It's possible to hobble from one checkpoint to checkpoint even in this original 1P version with low power. Rank is tied to power level noticeably here. As long as you don't get red before a boss, but it'll probably need to study up some more if I want to get past Stage 7 and its nasty airplane spawns from behind. Yeah, that's Stage 7 is the one where that starts happening. And That's where you that's where you have to memorize stuff.
Yep.
Responding to Pony Trigun regarding rank, it is more lenient if I recall correctly. Rank will still increase when you get additional power, but not as much versus arcade and bullet speed, and doesn't get anywhere as fast. Not only does red increase bullet speed, but has poor Zaku coverage. But upgrading red past level 2 does less damage. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Due to HP scaling and only 2 flame lasers can hit the boss at a time, I think it even does less damage in the Western arcade variants. Later post, I had to waste some lives to learn the boss 5-6 checkpoint recovery on the fly, having a separate 10 Hz button and 30 Hz for bosses. Seems to be making a decent difference on power recovery, but the road to victory seems far away. Later post, it takes a very long time, 3-4 stages, to get back to full power, so you end up hobbling from checkpoint to checkpoint. The only place that might be an exception is stage 8 due to its plentiful bomb drops and 5 power-ups from the large boats. But it's not free in this version due to the numerous turret boats in that section. But the Genesis version is more recoverable there if you do take a hit. Final thoughts. Same 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 is a prime example of a very intricate checkpoint design that is a big step up from its earlier titles, and serves as an interesting example of how game developers tried to solve the problem of balancing the game between casual players and hardcore players while maintaining a steady income for arcade operators. Maintaining a steady income for arcade operators, alongside other examples of Tatsujin O, Raiden 2, R-Type 2, etc. from around the same era. Most devs eventually shifted to the other option of adding secondary mechanics to entice score players by the mid-1990s onward. Yes, thank you for your thoughts, War Commander. I know you had a lot of input in the Discord chat, so and a lot of good tips, and I know we'll get to the score later.
Yeah, and Orc Commander actually managed to, even though it wasn't within the month, shortly after the month, managed to get a clear of the original one-player arcade version, which
that's really
is
impressive.
Quite a feat.
Amazing job.
Yeah, so major kudos for sticking with it and persevering through to that kind of clear. Mighty Squirrel said, "Now that I'm playing for score, I just died on 1-4 without using a single bomb. Seriously considering resetting because of the bonus I lost. So yes, the bonus is everything. Especially since you can get 250,000 plus off of one bonus." Yeah, that was something that they mentioned in the SDG Weekly episode as well, where you really don't want to bomb unless you absolutely have to, because since your bomb effectively becomes your multiplier for your end stage bonus, the more you have in stock, the better your bonus is going to be. And again, you can sometimes net 1 to 2 extends per stage that way.
Our last comment comes to us from a man who, well, every time I read this, I feel like I'm talking about my future here. Geriatric Don Mako. Good evening, gamers. I'm finally on board for the 2022 November Shmup Club. After a few hours of Fireshark on the Genesis, we have 233,010 points. Looking to iron out some kinks over the next day and to take on Same Same Same, one-player Japanese, to compete on scores with Orc Commander, playing both on MAME 232. Just completed a new personal best. At my level, this stuff counts as a huge personal victory, but early stage 7, the green playing flight patterns with no power-ups. I went into this with 6 lives and could not crack the path to success. Might have to do a save state here if I can get back to it. Scores, 749,020. Stage 7 on Genesis Easy. Hey, there's something I forgot about Fireshark and MAME. A Trap 15 hack version. Does anybody know about this? I certainly don't. Do you?
I did after he mentioned it, yeah.
So what's different about it?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, I gave it a try too. For every power-up, you don't have to collect 3 power-ups to power up, so every time you collect 1 power-up, you automatically power up your level. So that's that's one of my favorite parts about it. Is there no speed pickups?
Yeah, I believe the speed pickups are gone, and it just uses a faster constant speed. But I feel like the bullet speeds are just as fast, and really it's almost as brutal as the arcade version.
Yeah.
But of course, with being able to power up your ship much more quickly, you at least have a little bit more of a fighting chance in terms of recovery.
Yeah. It's nicer to recover in, but yeah, it doesn't pull any punches for the bullet speed.
Which sounds like it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
Alright, well, about an hour into Same 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 for the Japanese one-player version, it's harsh. Feeling like it stole my lunch money. Players start slow, bullets start fast. The U.S. Defense Department could use Toaplan's expertise in precisely targeting enemies. After about an hour of Same Same Same, Trap 15 hack, can say it rules. If you play it, definitely. A lot of the upsides are noted above, but there is an additional big advantage. The autofire is built into the ROM. This would be huge for anyone playing on real PCB. If they can get the ROM chips burned for this version, they can be free of about a zillion presses of the fire button. I wonder if there's like a counter out there. You know, a zillion presses saved. It is likely I will never go back to any of the other arcade ROMs ever again. So far, my personal best is 154,080 points. And congratulations. I'm glad you took a chance on playing the arcade version, which is the hardest version, and made it out with your sanity intact. So kudos to you, sir, and I'll definitely have to try out the hacked version.
For sure. Well, jumping into the scores, just real quickly, on the super easy mode, on the M2 port, I took the top spot there with 24,483,380. And if I remember correctly, that might have been a no-miss. I'd have to go back and watch the replay. And then Lewis G posted the score, 17,061,470 points. Now on the one-player arcade Same arcade, Orc Commander, of course, came in before the end of the month with 1,574,530. Fomacho with 241,230. Lewis G with 120,420. And Geriatric Danmaku with 110,030 points. Louis G was the only one who submitted a score for the Same Easy Custom mode. Score of 140,580 points. On the Genesis version on Easy, Fomacho kind of blew us all away with 4,223,080 points. I slotted in second place with 3,519,350. Corkman was pretty close, nipping at my heels there with 3,477,770. Schlarp was in at 2,350,880 points. And Mighty Squirrel not far behind with 2,102,260 points. And then Corkman, you had the top spot on normal on the Genesis version with 3,430,760 points. And then Fomacho at 2 million. I don't think I grabbed the whole score. 2 million and change, we'll say. So, final thoughts.
This game is the kind of, I love this game, and I'm like the same. I'm pretty old, right? And I've been playing retro games kind of my whole life, and but you know what? I never really kind of got into STGs for the longest time. And it wasn't until I kind of started getting back and playing, NES, Genesis, and like Super Nintendo, that type of era games, just playing a lot of things I never played before. I picked this up very cheaply at a flea market, many years ago. And off of a recommendation from Classic Game Room, shout out to Mark there from Classic Game Room. And this was like the first shoot 'em up that like I really liked. This is the one that kind of made me think, I should get more of these. I really like. I think I might like this genre of games, and I started buying mainly a lot of Genesis games, Super Nintendo games, some NES games, playing them on emulation and other ones in emulation, and then I just kind of went from there. I just explored, okay, what are some great games on PlayStation 1 and some other arcade games that I had missed through the years. So I've just been really kind of exploring the whole genre. Just kind of because this game was so good for me, and I think it's a great game. The Genesis version is a great game for anyone who's looking to get into the old school game, the old style shoot 'em ups, because it's easier. Like, it starts off in easy mode, but it's still challenging to kind of get a clear on it. So you'll do really well for the first 4 levels or so, and then you'll die, but then you'll keep wanting to come back and come back to it and come back to it. And I really love it. And I think probably, in the future, I was happy to clear the normal mode. I had cleared the easy mode, a while ago, but it was nice to come back to this month and really take on the normal mode and get a clear on that. So that was a lot of fun. And then exploring a lot of what the M2 port had, available to it. And probably in the future, I'll be exploring more about that, that M2 port, I think Super Easy Mode was really fun. And I got appreciation of how hard the arcade mode is. And then I think what I like about that M2 port is, someone else mentioned it, is the custom mode. You can kind of probably go back and set that to easy. Maybe give myself a couple more upgrades to kind of ease into, and then like kind of dial back on those bonuses and those, I don't know, those helpers, and keep playing until I can maybe get good at the straight up arcade version. So yeah, I love this game. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I've mentioned many times that I've kind of long been into the genre of shooting games, but it was Lightning Force on the Genesis that really cemented my love of the genre. But it was games like this in the late 90s and early 2000s, as I was exploring the Shmups forum and just buying up games left and right. By that time, since I was a young adult and I had some more discretionary income, and this is one of the Genesis games I bought early on that kind of helped continue to cement that a love and enjoyment of the genre. And it's one of those evergreen games that I can come back to all the time. And now that I've cleared the easy version and I've been able to get pretty far on normal, I could see myself sticking with this to clear normal, and then I could see myself going back to the M2 port to, number one, see if I can maximize a good score on super easy mode, but then also possibly utilizing the challenge mode as a means of trying to learn the arcade version in a bit more bite-sized chunks to see if it can help me to just improve my capabilities. And between the game's cool setting, awesome soundtrack, and solid as a rock gameplay, I can still see myself enjoying this game in some form for years to come.
Yeah, I think both those are well said. I echo those statements, but I think I come from maybe a little bit of a different background in this. I'm familiar with Flying Shark, and I played the NES port. And Same really wasn't on my radar anywhere near as much as Raiden was. I was a lot more familiar with the Raiden series and came via that way, so it's sort of neat to go back and see some of the beginnings and see where a lot of the inspiration came from. I think that this game may not be the technical, fine-tooth, combed, finely balanced masterpiece that Flying Shark is, but it is right on par with it when it comes to graphic sounds and gameplay. I think that it is a very close second there, and to anyone who's at all interested in shmup history, or to get an idea of how did we get from point A to point B, has to see Flying Shark and Fire Shark as a good stepping stone to see how the genre evolved I still think that there's more people out there who are familiar with the Raiden series than are with Flying Shark and Fire Shark, but for those of you who are willing to tread down the path of the sniper tank, they're going to have a great time.
All right. Well, what do we have coming up next?
A lot of podcast editing. No, coming up for 2023, we have our focus game of the year, which is going to be Gunvein. And for those of you who like to dodge bullets really quickly and press buttons really fast, that is the game for you. We also have a game that is not for everybody, but still you can turn your brain off and enjoy, which is Super Amazing Wagon Adventure, or as my copy calls it, Super Amazing Wagon Adventure Turbo. And then we've got all sorts of goodies coming up, and this year is the year that we start, or 2023 is the year that we start our first Toho game. So that will be interesting to try out, and maybe this year we finally start our first Cotton game too. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm up for both of those.
Yeah. And then, of course, January, we are going to be taking on a Taito Classic.
Back in Black.
It is now that it is available on Arcade Archives. We're going to be playing some Metal Black.
Nice.
And for those of you who want to play the Saturn port, don't feel too bad.
Exactly.
Is that not a good port to play?
No, it's a good port, but the Arcade Archives port will be better. The Saturn version has some things on it, but again, it's sort of like dealing with I guess it's sort of like playing Greg on the Saturn versus playing Greg on the M2 port. There's just going to be some like quality of life and better features on the Arcade Archive stuff. It's not enough that you would have a huge difference, but it's going to be noticeable. Plus, the Saturn version is going to be a lot more money.
Right. Yeah, you're talking $8 for the Arcade Archives release and $80 plus for the Saturn version.
Before I forget, it's also on the Taito PS2 volume. Taito Volume 2 on the PS2.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Taito Legends 2.
But I think there's something weird with that version, right? Doesn't it run too fast, or am I thinking of something else?
I'm not sure.
Maybe it was a different game on that one.
Could be.
But yeah, so you got 3 different ways to play it. I think a lot of people will probably pick the PS2 version of the Arcade Archives.
Probably.
Yeah, I'll probably do the Arcade Archives then. This is a good example of a game that I have a big blind spot for. I have no idea about this game, so I'll be excited to play it.
Oh, the soundtrack is great.
Yeah. Well, just the soundtrack is great, but I guess just a little preview. The Beam Duel feature that we saw in G. Darius has its origins in Metal Black.
Ah, okay. Okay.
And I can't even remember what February is.
Well, we'll get there.
Isn't February our first Kosogi game? Rock On?
No.
Oh.
No.
Dearly beloved in another damn space-time.
Hey, I'm with Addicted on this. Maybe we should have one of those one month.
A Kosoge month?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't know that I would want to spend a whole month playing one really awful game.
No, I understand. How about a Kusoge potpourri?
I like that idea.
3 or 4
maybe
games.
Yeah, maybe take a handful and cross them off the list.
Oh, shoot, I forgot. I was going to mention how they build the enemy build its fleet so fast. I was going to say Well, that's what happens when you use text mixing to power your factories, but...
I had to sneak that in there.
I was waiting for that reference.
All right. Well, we definitely want to shout out some people here.
Hey,
Studio.
Before you start that, can I just shout out to you guys and your podcast? I've been listening for about 2 years now, and guys, it's been a lot of fun just listening and playing the games with you guys, and just discovering all these these games, and keeping us all on the cutting edge of what's coming out there, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for having me on too.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yeah. I mean,
we really can't do it without people who are interested in playing these games. We say that. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. We say that almost every time, but really, without people being interested in having the passion for this, there are times where I'm sure both of us thought, "Can we keep doing this? Have we done 5 years enough?" But the ability for people that we're not shouting out into the void, and people who enjoy this, really gives us the energy to keep doing this month after month, and to put up. Well, I shouldn't say put up, but to have the drive and the energy to keep doing this, especially when you're being shot from sniper tanks at all angles and all hope seems lost.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your kind words, and yeah, I mean, we do appreciate that, because occasionally it feels like we are just shouting into the void, but it's good to know that people are listening, and that there are those who appreciate what we're doing.
Yes, keep at it.
Yep, and one day we will play Rock On.
It's the Pinocchio Kusoge. Someday I'll be a real shmup.
Oh, geez, that thing can never be a real shmup. Has anyone? Have both of you played that?
Oh, it's so bad.
No, but I've got to now.
Oh, you absolutely do.
Let's see if I can pull it up. I still got the intro for this game, because it's all in English. Let's see here. Dearly beloved, other time, other space, people live a damn boring routine life. Although the world is so peaceful, of course some of them think they gotta go out of the life dreaming about getting a big fortune. To realize that dream, there's only one way left in the world, needless to say, it's how some to find out the mysterious fortune hidden by the ancient people. Busters. It's the name of the people we call fortune hunters. Now they're just about to start a historic journey that no one could come back alive from. That is the FISA called Legend by People. But except the one person, no one in the world can make it in real life who's got to be a billionaire and radical psychically and physically and mentally. Now the whole world is watching you and looking for your success. Now let's go for it. So that's pretty much the intro for this crazy game. And even though it's not translated, at least I don't think there's an English translation, there's this girl who was interviewing and asking the pilot, like, "Hey, what you doing on there?" And he just starts hitting on her. It's just... it is such a weird game. It's the only game I know where you can power up your ship's speed so much that it's practically unplayable.
I gotta try this.
Yeah. It's so bad. Alright, well, let's go ahead and shout out some folks here. Ed from Studio Mud Prince, thank you for the logo. Also thank you to Kogasu for the intro and outro music. Shout outs to our friends on the Press Play cast and the Collector cast. And as I said before, don't forget to follow me on Twitch and check out the streams throughout the month. Also, I wanted to quickly shout out a couple of folks. First, one of the streamers that I know Corkman and I follow, Mommy from Hyrule, she's been working on a bunch of games on the Mega Drive Mini 2. And in particular, she's been focusing on Thunder Force 4 lately. And she's been struggling with it. But, of course, it's a difficult game. And I think she's close to cracking it. She's not really doing one credit clears or anything. She's just kind of using the allotment of credits to try and get through the game. But the second half of the game is definitely taking more time to kind of work through. So good luck with that. I think she's close, but
it's still a good challenge, and I'm sure she'll do it. She always sticks with them. It's amazing. She always sticks with them to the very end. So
yeah, she'll get it. And then also randomly, I wanted to shout out Pony Trigon's cat Xena, because Pony Trigon posted in the Discord that it would be funny to hear the cat mentioned on the podcast. So there you go. Any other shout-outs?
nope.
Hey, I'd like to shout out to MetalFRO for streaming on there. His streams have become increasingly interesting this month, as we're dealing with not only hashtag parrot dog here, we've been dealing with hashtag really random game. So always been interesting to watch what happens there on day 2,685,000 when buffaloes attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a fun stream just because how random that game is.
Yeah, it's a hoot. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and close up shop and say thank you all for listening, and we will catch you in 2023.